The Michigan Wolverines are national champions. For the first time since 1989, the Maize and Blues celebrate winning it all in men's basketball, snapping a 26-year championship drought for the Big Ten. And for those who couldn't make it to Indianapolis to watch the Final Four and celebrate in person with the Wolverines, thousands showed up at the official Michigan watch party inside the Chrysler Center with their fellow Maize and Blue, watching Dusty May help the Michigan Wolverines bring the national championship trophy back to Ann Arbor. It has truly been a season of success for the Big Ten. Indiana claiming its first ever college football playoff national championship in January. On Sunday, UCLA won the women's NCAA championship for the first time ever. And earlier this evening, the Michigan Wolverines knocking off UConn to claim the 2026 men's national championship. With that, welcome inside this very special championship edition of the Big Ten Live postgame. Rick Pizzo, Sean Morris following Michigan's 69-63 win over UConn. This was one of the greatest seasons in Michigan history, one of the greatest seasons, Sean, in Big Ten history. And based on what the Wolverines did from start to finish, I would argue one of the greatest seasons in college basketball history.
I think it'd be hard to dispute that. And tonight was a great example of this is a team that can do it, a lot of things with glitz and glamour. They had to win a meat grinder here tonight. You have to give a ton of credit to UConn for vast majority of this ball game. The pace was right where UConn wanted it. They were able to kind of be physical, but Michigan was able to answer that challenge. They didn't make their first three until into the second half. This is the team that shoots 37% from behind the arc, but they found a way. They were able to overcome two double-doubles from the front line of UConn, but it was the foul line. It wasn't the most glamorous thing. We talked about how that might be really integral to any chance for success for Michigan tonight, and it certainly was. Plus 13 from the foul line. They kept attacking. They got UConn in foul trouble, and then the Huskies just wore down toward the end. But a tremendous, tremendous performance, especially on the defensive end for Michigan. I think that you can't talk about their defense enough, and not just the shot blocking of Mara, but the fact that their on-the-ball defense can be so aggressive and funneled to help. Really textbook in that regard.
UConn, a very good three-point shooting team, just 9 of 33 from behind the arc. But the difference was at the free throw line. It may not be the sexiest, most glamorous thing to talk about, but when you look at the free throw numbers, Michigan at one point made 20 consecutive free throws. They finished 25 of 28. They made 9 more free throws, Sean, than UConn even attempted. The total disparity in free throw makes 13. The difference in the game, 6. You don't have to be a math major, and neither one of us certainly were in college, to figure out that's where the difference lies.
Yeah, and they were able to attack. We talked about the importance of Michigan attacking, and they certainly did that, especially in the second half. The foul trouble with that backcourt, I think, hindered UConn's ability to come back. They had to put some players in there. They fought all the way to the end. But again, understanding the way that the game was going to be called, UConn was a team that came in averaging 21 fouls per ball game, so it's not a shock that they were going to give up fouls. And UConn, once again, going back to what we've talked about throughout the course of this Final Four, UConn was the only team that came into this Final Four that didn't have more makes from the foul line than the opponents had attempted. Michigan was able to continue that trend here tonight, and that was a big reason for their win.
It wasn't just the stars. Yaxa Lendeborg hobbled a little bit, ended up in double digits. And Elliot Cadeau had a terrific game, especially in the first half, kind of setting the tone. But, Sean, in games like this, low scoring, not necessarily the pace or tempo that Michigan wanted to play at, you need guys to play roles and play big roles and impactful roles. And I would argue in this one, guys like Roddy Gale, who was huge on the defensive end, couple of really important putbacks, and Trey McKinney, who has taken over a larger role. Didn't have a huge game in terms of scoring, but knocked down a massive 3 late, made a couple of clutch free throws as well. If you want to beat a team that's been in the national championship game 3 times in the last 4 years, you're going to need more than just your stars, and that's exactly what Michigan got.
Well, Roddy Gale, he missed a couple free throws at the end, but that was really the only blemish on his ball game because he came in, his stat line, to your point, didn't really hop out at you, but he had some tough rebounds in traffic, and when they started to look like they were going to get Mullins going from the three-point line, they put Gale on him, and he completely shut the water off on the defensive end of the floor. Then you mentioned McKinney. How about the confidence that Michigan had in him, having him out there, and he was the one that they set up to get the ball inbounds so he could get fouled. That's what you have earned when you shoot 89% from the floor. But when he stepped to the line with the game still kind of in doubt, there was no doubt that he was making those, and it didn't touch anything but the bottom of the well. So McKinney, outstanding performance, but Roddy Gale, as he has all year, came in and assumed his role. This was a guy that was a starter at his previous stop at Ohio State. He was a starter for long periods of time last year, and he said, look, if my best opportunity to win is to go to the bench, I'll do that. He's done that. He's kind of sacrificed, as a lot of these guys have their individual stats for the result you saw tonight.
McKinney, by the way, nearly finishes with a double-double because he had 8 rebounds, not necessarily a category that he fills up, but some huge ones in this game. Perez Johnson also finished with 12 points and 10 rebounds. We are awaiting and will wait until Michigan goes to its post-game press conference. You'll hear from Dusty May, select Wolverine players after they cut down the nets. They enjoy that national championship feeling on the floor inside Indianapolis. And as they get set to do that, those who watched it have taken to social media to send congratulations. Of course, one of the members of the Fab Five, Chris Webber, sending both respect and love. The Detroit Pistons getting in on the act as well. Hey, it's your home state team, or at least one of them, and the Gov from the state of Michigan as well. Gretchen Whitmer sending her congratulations to the Michigan Wolverines. And when you win the title, you get to change the profile pic. If you go to Sean Morris's webpage, by the way, he changes his profile pic all the time. It never will look as pretty as this will look to Michigan fans, as they are men's basketball national champions in 2026. Dan Hurley came into this game with one of the best winning percentages ever in NCAA tournament history for anyone who had coached more than 10 games. He had lost just once. But Dusty May got the better of the UConn head coach in this particular matchup. Now, May sits second in terms of winning percentage in NCAA tournament games in the span of the last 4 to 5 years, having brought FAU to the Final Four just a few years ago. I don't think we can overstate the job that Dusty May has done. Now 12-3 over the last 3 seasons in NCAA tournament games. We heard him speaking post-game saying if he had been told that Michigan would be out-rebounded and that they would shoot as poorly as they had shot, that he wasn't sure they would have a chance to win this game. But the fact that they did, Sean, tells me that his players are coachable. They are versatile enough to win games in multiple different ways.
Especially on the defensive end of the floor. They were in a rock fight with UConn. UConn had it exactly where they wanted it for long periods of time in terms of not allowing Michigan to get up and down the floor. And the Wolverines, especially in the first half, were frustrated in that regard. They took some quick shots, which kind of played into UConn's hands. So this is a team that came in averaging north of 90 points per ball game in the NCAA tournament. You knew they weren't going to score that tonight, and they found a way to win. And it was with really solid defense. Both teams extremely well coached. You could see the moves and the counter moves, especially in the half-court set. UConn got a couple of quick shots. Michigan made adjustments in terms of coming off those stagger screens to take that away. And UConn did the same thing to Michigan. A lot of the backdoor cuts and the lobs that were there were just taken away. And it wasn't because of a lack of execution by Michigan on the offensive end. UConn did a great job of knocking people off their routes. Both of these coaches, they showed you why they have the records that they have, because not just with the preparation of their teams, but their ability, along with their staffs, to make in-game adjustments. Very, very impressive, especially in such a low-scoring game when you knew possessions were going to be at a premium.
A low-scoring game, a game that was officiated in a way that a lot of contact was allowed, especially in bringing the ball up the floor. Both those aspects would seem to favor UConn. Instead, Michigan, a team that had scored at least 90 in each of its first 5 NCAA tournament games, becoming the first team ever to do that, doesn't even get to 70, but they get what matters most, the national championship. Jaxa Lendeborg was in the starting lineup despite that injury suffered in the semifinals. Actually played all 20 minutes in the first half. His late first half shot no good, but there's that guy, Roddy Gale, on the offensive glass with the awfully loud putback. Wolverines up by 4 at the break, and then it's Elliot Cadeau. Beautiful ball fake. 3 of his 19. Wolverines up by 11, much to the delight of the watch party crowd at the Chrysler Center. And here is that dagger 3 by Trey McKinney at the end of the game. 69-63. Michigan salts it away at the free throw line as they hoist that NCAA men's basketball championship for for the first time since 1989. Not sure shock the world is appropriate for a team that beat Gonzaga by 40 back in November and was #1 for much of the year. But Axel Lendeborg said it. They want to be known as one of the best to ever do it. The tale of the tape as we go inside the box score shows that neither team shot it very well. Actually, both very poorly from three-point range. Michigan was out-rebounded. Very few fast break points for either squad, but Michigan held the lead for more than 30 minutes, and a huge reason why their ability at the free throw line and their ability, Sean, I would say, to not get overly frustrated as the shot clock wound down every time that UConn had the ball. And the way that UConn was defending Michigan didn't really allow the Wolverines to get out in transition. They were comfortable enough. It's not their game, but they were comfortable enough in the half court to wait and be patient enough to get what they wanted on more occasions than not.
And to your point, I can only think of maybe two, at most three possessions where you felt like Michigan did get frustrated and tried to force something that wasn't there. You know, a couple of the early threes in the ball game, you're like, they don't really need this at this point in time. But then to talk about the countering that each squad did, I thought when Dusty May decided, hey, we're going to pressure and try to maybe speed up UConn just a little bit, especially with that early foul trouble that backcourt had for UConn. You had guys that were having to play a little bit longer minutes for the Huskies, and against that pressure, and not just pressure, but sizable pressure. I mean, everyone talks about positional size. Michigan certainly has that when you can put guys 6'7", 6'8" that can guard multiple positions, and then you're funneling. If you do get over the top and you decide you want to try to beat the pressure, you got a 7'3" shot blocker back there. I think they were able to kind of overcome some of those early butterflies by speeding up UConn just a bit. UConn didn't take the whole bait. They didn't force a whole lot of things, but the fact that they were able to utilize their defense with a squad, to your point earlier, that the fact that they came in averaging 90 points per ball game, I think they'll hang their hat on the fact that, hey, look, we're not just glamour, we've got grit as well.
You know, Dusty May said it all year long that this team, in his own words, was as connected as any team that he'd ever coached. And I know that's a buzzword today that we hear a lot in college sports. But when you looked on the bench in the second half, after Axel Lendeborg had said at halftime that he felt awful, that he was weak, that he couldn't really play the way that he wanted to, he was on the bench getting coached up mentally by L.J. Kaysen, who had earlier this year suffered a season-ending injury. And to me, it kind of spoke volumes about what this team has been all year long. It didn't just have to be Yaxel, the Big Ten Player of the Year. It had been so many different players at so many different times. The Wolverine players love to say, we don't have 5 starters. We have 9 starters, including Kaysen. And I think we saw a lot of that tonight.
I think we did. And if I were to hazard a guess, Kaysen, in terms of maybe encouraging Lendeborg, you probably said to him something along the lines, do you know what I would give to be out there right now? You're out there, I'm not. Don't let this opportunity slip away. And then the other tangible thing is you talk about the unselfishness of this team and guys being willing to assume roles. Because, you know, you talk about going 8 or 9 deep. Those 3 or 4 other guys that don't start that we're talking about, they're going anywhere else in the country and they're starting almost assuredly. And it's reflected in the fact that coming into this Final Four, there was one guy in the Michigan squad that was averaging more than 30 minutes per ball game. That was Lendeborg, okay? The MVP of the league. A lot of guys aren't going to be willing to play sub 30 minutes and assume a role. A lot of people say they want to assume a role, and a lot of people say that I'm all about winning until it comes time when they look at the stat sheet and I'm not getting the shots I want, I'm not getting the fact that they were able to keep that all together, especially when this was a team that was starting 5 transfers. This wasn't a team that came up together and they were able to kind of go through the growing pains together. They had a lot of basketball experience. It just wasn't with one another, and they were able to kind of check the proverbial egos at the door and find a way to get it done, which very, very impressive.
7 guys playing at least 16 minutes, 6 of those guys playing 25 minutes or more. As we continue the discussion about the history that Michigan made this year, 37 wins. That is tied for the most in Big Ten men's basketball history in a single season, tying that legendary 2004-2005 Illinois team that came up just short of a national championship. 37 wins. It is a hard number to fathom, Sean, when you consider the strength of the field that Michigan played in its early season tournament, a field that it absolutely blew away, winning nearly every game by 30 or 40 points. And then going into the league this year, the Big Ten, widely considered the deepest and most talented league in the country, and to lose just 1 game in the conference and to go unbeaten on the road. If you had told any of us that cover and follow Big Ten basketball before the year that was going to happen, we would have asked you if you were actually crazy.
Well, I've been asked that many times, and the jury's still out on that. But with that particular question, that is certainly the case. To go 19-1 in this league with the strength at the top, which is exhibited by the fact, half of the Elite Eight were Big Ten teams. That was not by accident. So every night was a test for each one of these teams, especially for Michigan coming in. And to go 19-1, you don't lose a game on the road in this league when everybody is circling that date. I mean, you're not going to get any half-hearted effort by anybody. And they played from behind sometimes. I mean, they did not play extremely well, especially in the early going against Northwestern. That was Northwestern's, proverbial Super Bowl. But, man, they went on a run. They figured out this is how we're going to have to do it, how we're going to get these wins. And it was a different player every night. Yes, Lindenborg deservedly was the MVP of the Big Ten Conference. But you had other guys throughout the course of the year. Mara hit a little bit of a rough patch. Then he kind of picked things up. The job McKinney did stepping in after Kaysen got hurt, because when Kaysen got hurt, there was a little talk, hey, this is a big loss, which it was. But for him to step in and do what he was able to do as a true freshman with not a whole lot of any college experience, and to deliver the way he did in the clutch on both ends of the floor, man, you certainly have to put them in the conversation for some of the best teams that ever played in this conference, without a doubt.
If you're just joining us here on the Big Ten Live Championship postgame following Michigan's 69-63 win over Connecticut to claim the school's second men's basketball national championship, we are awaiting press conference coverage from Indianapolis. We'll get you back to Lucas Oil Stadium as soon as that press conference coverage begins. We'll also get reports from our crew in Indy who saw this game firsthand. Dave Revson, Andy Katz, Raphael Davis set to join us in just a little bit. The second NCAA championship for the Michigan men's basketball program, capping off a 37-win season and the second highest all-time point-per-game differential in Big Ten history, winning all of those games this year by an average of nearly 18 points, and so important for the league, Sean, after being so close over the course of the last 26 years since Tom Izzo led Michigan State to the conference's last men's basketball national championship in 2000. The Big Ten and Michigan have finally been able to cross that item off the to-do list.
Well, it's one of those things, whether it's in college basketball or life, you know how you get people to stop talking about what you haven't done is to do it. And they did it. And if you go back a little bit and kind of switch in sports, there was a narrative around Big Ten football going back to right when the college football playoffs started. They haven't won the big one. They haven't won a championship in a while. Well, Ohio State was able to kind of put that to rest. And now you fast forward a little bit, 3 consecutive Big Ten teams have won the NCAA national championship in football. Now, this may serve as a similar springboard. There are a lot of teams, who knows what rosters are going to look like. Obviously, that's just a point of contention that's going to be going on. But the fact that now this is something that the league has shown, look, we are clearly the best league in the country, at least for this year. They showed it from top to bottom, and then they completed the deal in March. Because right, wrong, or indifferent, there have been some really, really good Big Ten teams and outstanding seasons in the Big Ten Conference. But people remember what happens in late March and early April. You can say that's not fair. That's life.
As is the transfer portal today. Yep. And Dusty May has made the most of it last year with guys like Vlad Golden and Danny Wolf. This year, Yaxa Lendeborg, Roddy Gale, Elliot Cadeau, Adai Mara, all major factors. And when you win a national championship, the after effect means you don't necessarily have to go out and get guys. Guys want to come to you, which is why sometimes those who win continue to win. And that's what Dusty is starting to build here, a program that won the Big Ten tournament in his first season, that won the regular season and the national championship in season number 2. It is only going to get easier now to get elite players to come to Ann Arbor to play for this program.
Because you kind of have a framework now. Because you can show guys. I think last year was obviously very impressive for Michigan in this regard. They decided, look, we're going to play with a couple of bigs. And in the 5-out world that you see almost exclusively, there were a lot of people kind of scratching their heads. Well, Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden had outstanding years and were able to take Michigan deep in the tournament. Now you're able to then go out when people are considering coming to your school or you're recruiting them. Look, this is how we see you as a role. And you can actually show them the video about what we want to do. It's not conceptual. So now you can go out if there are bigs that are versatile, that want to come out and play, you're not going to find another Lindenborg, but you can find somebody and say, look, I'm not going to guarantee that you're going to have the season that you had, but I'm going to have the opportunity to maybe put you in the position to have an outstanding situation where you can kind of utilize your skills. And I think the fact that they set the blueprint a year ago and then were able to sell enough guys, hey, look, this is something that you can do, man, it's going to only become, to your point, a little bit easier. Not going to be easy, it's going to be easier to find guys that can kind of play in and fit into that role, and winning solves a ton of problems.
Well, you bring in both Merez Johnson and Adai Mara, two bigs and guys who are on the rise in their careers, who knew that they had a lot of upside. It was probably a little bit of a risk for both guys to join a team with the other on that team. Both absolutely flourished this year. They improved their draft stock dramatically. They became phenomenal college basketball players. And at the end of the day, they're national champions. So when it comes to the portal, and we're not looking ahead quite yet because Michigan should enjoy, and I know they will enjoy this national championship, but it is all about what have you done for me now, and tomorrow, what can you do for me next year? It's the world that we live in.
Well, because, the portal opens. And so, this used to be a period of time for coaches where they could kind of take a breath after the Final Four. Well, and let's be honest, recruiting never stops year-round, and that includes your own team, because I don't think Michigan has the opportunity. They would have had an opportunity, but maybe not as good of an opportunity to win a national title if they didn't have some retention from a year ago. Roddy Gale comes to mind.
Yep.
Namari Burnett. You got to have some guys that understand what it is that you want to do and can pass on that proverbial culture and help some of those newcomers, whether they be freshmen like McKinney or transfers coming in there. You have to have some retention. So my point being, the recruiting never stops, and now it gets ratcheted up to a whole new level once the portal officially opens tomorrow. So they'll enjoy it, and they should, but I guarantee there are assistants right now who are scouring, hey, what do we do?
Dusty May, we hope at least, is enjoying this for a minute. His career, if you will, started as a student manager at Indiana. He's a Big Ten guy through and through. Obviously did phenomenal stuff at Florida Atlantic before coming back to Michigan, winning the national championship in season number 2, setting the program record for wins. He's 8-1, right, in those NCAA tournament games while at Michigan, and the first coach to win a national title, to our point, Sean, with 5 transfers in the starting lineup.
I'm going to put on my old Johnny Carson Carnac hat.
It's not going to be the last.
It's not going to be the last. No, it's just not, because I don't think it's possible that you're going to have a truly developmental program coming along. You may be able to develop a player here or there, but all you have to do is take a look around senior days. There are very few guys, not just in the Big Ten but nationally, that have been there for all 4 years. And typically with a developmental sort of program, you would bring a person in and redshirt them. You can't afford to do that now. You just can't afford to do that. The pressure to win is so great. And look, I don't care who you are or at what level, but especially in college basketball, you're going to take your chances with a 22-year-old guy who's been around a little bit, regardless of how talented some 18-year-old first-year player is going to be coming in.
So let's talk about some of those individual transfers and the games that they had in the national championship and the seasons they had, starting with the Big Ten Player of the Year in Yaxel Lendeborg. We know he wasn't himself tonight, wasn't himself late after the injury early on against Arizona, but he was the tone setter. He was arguably the most versatile player, not just in the Big Ten, but in the country. And he is a guy that is going to have a very bright future at the next level.
Because of you mentioned his versatility offensively, he was bringing the ball up for long periods of time. When Cadeau got a couple of quick fouls of his own, they moved him over to the point. But I think the thing that makes him even more elite, Rick, is his ability to guard multiple positions. I mean, you could put him essentially on 1 through 5, and I'm not exaggerating. A lot of people talk about that, but he could keep smaller guys in front. He has the ability and the physicality. He could battle down on the block if he needed to. So his versatility, as it was with this whole team, guys decided to buy into the defensive end of the floor, because usually when you think of a team that averages 90 points per ball game in an NCAA tournament, you're thinking about a team like Loyola Marymount that's just going to get up and down the floor and try to score. But defensively, this was the team that was able to establish that part of their game throughout the course of the year, and just stellar on that end of the floor. And yes, it helps to have a game-altering player like Monty. I mean, you have to have him. But look, if he doesn't have other defenders to funnel things to him, it ain't working.
What an interesting path it was for Yaxel Lendeborg. JUCO for 3 years, then goes to UAB, becomes the Defensive Player of the Year, able to use that extra eligibility to go to Michigan for this final year, becomes the Big Ten Player of the Year because of that versatility and also because of the leadership that he provided for this team. There's no doubt on the floor, even though Elliot Cadeau was the point guard, Jaxa Lendeborg was the leader. You brought up Mara just a second ago, so now let's talk about Adai Mara and his evolution and development this year, because his growth was exponential. He improved as much as any player in the country, regardless of size, regardless of position. He may have an interesting decision to make coming up here in the offseason because of how high he has risen in terms of his NBA draft stock. But, Sean, I was blown away watching this young man and his improvement over the course of the year, understanding how to use his size on both ends of the floor, how quick he is with the drop step, and maybe most impressively, that touch and the hands that he has for a guy who's 7'3".
His hands, I saw him in the game that I had the opportunity to see Michigan in person against Rutgers. He is on a dead sprint at 7'3", okay? Dead sprint, the pass is behind him and a little low. He doesn't break stride, is able to reach behind him, catch it, get it into the shooting position, and complete. And I think the other thing that stood out this year for me with him is the confidence with which he played on the offensive end of the floor. They ran things to throw the ball inside to him. He showed the ability to finish around the rim with either hand. And the other thing that stands out to you, which I think is going to bear well for his financial well-being moving forward, his ability to pass the ball. I mean, this is a guy at 7'3". It doesn't just become a black hole when you throw it in there, like he either has to score or it's going to be a turnover. He and Cadeau established a rapport and a chemistry where it's usually the smaller player feeding the big. It was almost a 50-50 proposition. And his ability, obviously, to look over the top, but to make the right pass, make the touch pass, really, really impressed with his footwork on both ends of the floor, because he can impact the game. It wasn't going to necessarily be they're going to take the ball at him, although some people did, and they had a modicum of success. But his ability to understand angles, be coached in those angles, and then come over from the weak side and block shots, and just as importantly, keep them in bounds, which triggered a lot of breaks for Michigan.
You just mentioned Elliot Cadeau. We'll talk about Cadeau and some of the other transfer starters coming up a little bit later, but it is time for us to take our first trip down to the site of the Final Four, Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Dave Revson and Raphael Davis have more after watching Michigan's national championship victory firsthand.
Rick, thanks. For the second time in school history, the Michigan Wolverines are national champions. Dave Revson, Raphael Davis. Look, it was not a work of art. I don't think anyone would say that it was. But for Michigan fans, for those players and coaches, there is nothing more beautiful than what happened out on this court here tonight.
I mean, it was just big time. It was everything that we wanted as fans. We wanted a good game. We got a good game. And you look at Michigan, it was the story of their season. They can beat you in any different way. They can beat you in a grind it out. They can beat you getting up and down. And they can beat you when shots don't go in. You think about playing in a national championship. You go 0 from 3 in the first half, and you go 2 for 15 for the game, and you still find a way to win. It just shows the great of a coach that Dusty May is, the talent that those guys have, and the will that they had to get to that free throw line and not just get there, but make them. I mean, this was just a big-time game. To win it with your player of the year, first-team All-American, hobbling on one leg, not able to go at full strength, it was just a full big-time team effort.
No, it's pretty amazing. I mean, 61 of their 69 points came either in the paint or at the free throw line. You just kept thinking eventually they're going to rein in some threes, and in fairness, they did hit 2 of them in the game. But the story of this game, to your point, was the grit, was the determination, and frankly was the defense, because while Michigan shot a season low from the field, UConn did as well. Michigan has been the best defensive team in the country for the entirety of this year, and they showed it here tonight, right?
Oh, it was big time. They were on a string. I mean, they were switching on contact. They were 2-to-man, close, keeping the ball in front of them. When the ball went up, they fought for the defensive rebounds. I mean, this is what you get when you get a Michigan squad. You look at the defense they did on Terrence Reed. It was big time on the glass, but he couldn't finish around the basket. So they not just had a Damar walling it up. They had Marez Johnson, Roddy Gale, guards coming down to clean it up and block shots out of bounds. This is what what wins you championships. I know everyone loves analytics. We all love offense. But defense, that's what's going to win at the end of the day. But I got to give a shout-out to one of the guys. You look at Elliot Cadeau, and you think about all the noise that was made around L.J. Casey when he went down, and deservingly so. But Elliot Cadeau heard that noise as well. Elliot Cadeau heard the country, all of college basketball saying, Michigan's best guard is injured. Well, Elliot Cadeau arrived in this NCAA tournament. He was fabulous throughout, and he had 19 points tonight, just big time, and that was battling with some foul trouble.
The leading scorer for Michigan in this game, and you think about his story, I mean, there's so many great stories on this Michigan team. But Elliot Cadeau, who I think was deemed a disappointment in his time at North Carolina. They pick him up in the portal, and people are thinking, is that really the answer at point guard for Michigan? He showed emphatically that it was the answer on the biggest stage you could possibly have. What did you make of Yaxel Lendeborg? I mean, it is obvious he was hampered. He said as much at halftime when Tracy Wolfson interviewed him, said, you know, I feel terrible, basically. And yet he guts it out in this game, ends up as a double-figure scorer, had some really important moments for them down the stretch.
One word, a warrior, a dude you take to war with you. You heard of foxholes from dudes overseas in wars. You want Yaxel Lindenberg in your foxhole. You want him with you in tough battles to go out there and just lay it all out on the line. He didn't think about his pro career. He could have really damaged himself in this game and really deterred his pro future, but he laid it all out. He wanted to win a national championship. Dusty May trusted in his guy, and the other guys understood that he's out here with us. He's drawing the defense away from him, but he's not the guy that we know him to be, and they picked up the slack. But you got to give the utmost credit to Yaxel, because although he was hurt, with him on the offensive end, hurt or not, the defense had to guard him like he was healthy, and it provided so much space for those bigs to be able to get in the lane and play. So you got to give a huge shout-out to Yaxel Lindenberg, one of the better players, one of the better glue guys that we have ever seen in college basketball, and tonight it showed why.
Yeah, it's hard to believe you can be a glue guy and also be the Conference Player of the Year, but you've been making that case all year, and I think we saw it. I mean, you want to talk about the pro future. I mean, if you're an NBA GM and you see somebody do that, you say, man, that's a guy I want on my team. I mean, really, really amazing to gut it out in the way that he did. What does this mean for Dusty May and for his program? I mean, pretty amazing to think you're 2 years into this. You took over a team that won 8 games.
That's crazy.
And in 2 years, you turned it into a national champion.
I mean, Dusty May is one of the greatest coaches to ever do it at this point. You think about what he came into Michigan, what he inherited, what he brought together. You talk about Elliot Cadeau being disappointed at North Carolina. He's got these guys all on the same page. They all got better throughout the season. Michigan is now a destination school. Guys are going to be lining up to go play for Dusty May. They already got a McDonald's All-American commit throughout this week. They got another 7-3 guy committed to the program. Michigan is going to have to push away recruits to say, we don't want you, young fella, because everyone's going to be just drooling at the mouth to play for Dusty May. He understands it. He gets how to coach and the X's and O's, and it's great there, but he is in the business of people. You see those guys, they make a mistake, they're not looking over to the bench and worried about coming in and out. They continue to play the game that's in front of them, and he's giving those guys the utmost confidence throughout the rest of the season.
Before we send it back to Rick, you have been saying all year that the Big Ten is the best conference in college basketball. I think we saw evidence of it throughout this NCAA tournament. 21 wins for the Big Ten. That is 7 more than any other conference had in this tournament. But ultimately, you are judged fairly or unfairly by whether you win a national championship. What does it mean for this league to finally break through and end that drought that dates back to 2000?
Dave want me to start beating my chest now, because you look at the Big Ten, it's the best conference in all the sports. Football, women's basketball, men's basketball. We got teams in the Frozen Four. You look at the Big Ten right now, the only phrase I have is it's no fun when the rabbit got the gun. We are rocking and rolling right now. The best coaches in the country, the best players in the country. Right now, the Big Ten is back, and we are here to stay. I am so happy to be a part of this thing.
Well, pretty amazing. The Big Ten becomes the first conference ever to, in the same academic year, win the football national championship, the women's basketball national championship, and the men's basketball national championship with 3 different schools. Has never been done with 3 different schools. The Big Ten has now done it, Rick.
Good stuff. How about Raphael doing that hockey? How about Barack Obama chiming in, congratulating Coach Dusty May, Elliot Cadeau, and all the Michigan basketball players on winning that title? Barack's correct. This team did dominate the tournament from start to finish. Devin Gardner, former Michigan quarterback, says Big Ten Player of the Year on one leg, bad shooting. UConn played the game they wanted. Didn't matter because Michigan had been in too many dog fights. Hashtag Go Blue. Our good friend, Big Ten Network football analyst, former Wolverine and NFL tight end Jake Butt there as well. I don't think you get a lot of arguments about the statement, best coach in basketball. A lot of football guys watching this game on Monday night. Taco Charlton as well, simply saying national champs because really that's all you have to say. Yes, they will celebrate this one in Ann Arbor. Dusty May's going to probably get to work on Tuesday. Maybe he takes Tuesday off, gets back to work on Wednesday. You know, the players, though, will be enjoying this moment right now. I wonder, Sean, what they're feeling because this was a team that before the year began was not thought of as highly as Purdue. Right. Even in this own league, was certainly not considered to be one of the national championship favorites. But Dusty May said that he believed as soon as this roster was assembled that he had a potential national championship roster in Ann Arbor. To be able to go from that point in June to this point in early April is pretty remarkable.
Well, and they challenged themselves, you know, in the non-conference. Now, you know, they had the requisite games to kind of start the year, but I don't think anybody would have foreseen what happened when they went out to Vegas. I mean, when you're blowing out Gonzaga by 40, they won their games out there. Those 3 games, I think it was north of 30 points per ball game. So any question that anyone had about where they were going to be in terms of the national radar, that was quickly put aside before the calendar flipped over to 2026. They dominated their first couple of games in the Big Ten that took place in December. And then when the new year came, the fact that again, I just keep coming back, you go 19-1 in this league.
Unbeaten on the road.
Unbeaten on the road when it's everybody's biggest game up to that point that they have played when you come to visit their gym. You're not going to get the biggest hospitality. You're going to get everybody's best shot. They found themselves behind a number of situations. But in addition to the offensive firepower and the arsenal that they had, they showed grit throughout the course of the year, being able to dig out from some holes. And tonight, I think that's what really kind of was able to get them over the finish line. They certainly didn't have their most fluid offensive performance, but they found a way. They understood, look, the foul line is our friend. They found ways to get there. They put pressure on the UConn defense. And then to go 25 of 28 when the stakes are highest, there's your ball game.
And quick reminder, we are awaiting press conference coverage from Indianapolis as soon as Dusty May and the Wolverines step to the podium at Lucas Oil Stadium. We will be there, and you will hear every single word after they clinch the 2026 National Championship. We're just getting started here on this championship edition of the Big Ten Live postgame. Much more to come from both here in studio and from site in Indianapolis right after the break. Champions, Michigan with a 69-63 win over UConn in Monday night's national championship game. It's the school's first national title in men's basketball since 1989 and the Big Ten's first since the year 2000. Protect that trophy at all costs. Michigan leaving the floor where they were just officially introduced to the crowd in Indianapolis as national champions. Elliot Cadeau with a game-high 19 points. Merez Johnson goes for a double-double, 12 and 10. Yaxa Lendeborg basically on one leg, able to score 13 points as the Wolverines lead it for 30 of 40 minutes to claim the national championship. Back here in studio as we continue on the Big Ten Live Championship postgame, Rick Pizzo and Sean Morris again get you to Indianapolis as soon as Michigan begins its post-championship press conference inside Lucas Oil Stadium. Should not be long from now. You'll hear from Dusty May and select Wolverine players. We've talked about some of those players already, Sean. Want to touch on Elliot Cadeau, who went for 19. It was a game high. This coming off a win against Arizona in which Cadeau's impact was measured in very different ways, was really good defensively and in terms of facilitating, but had an awful shooting night. In this one, Michigan needed him more offensively, and he was able to step up in that way as well.
And in a game where possessions were really at a premium by design by UConn, the last couple of ball games, Cadeau had 10 assists in each one of the ball games. That was great. But in the most recent game against Arizona, uncharacteristically, 6 turnovers. So they needed him to tidy that part of his ball game up. He did. He took care of the ball when it mattered most. And you take a look at what they were able to do. He was 8 of 9 from the line. And that was the story. You're going to have the ball in your hands. Chances are you're going to get fouled. He stepped up and delivered that. And he was able to come back in after those 2 fouls and kind of pick up. And Once he knocked down the three, they weren't able to get a whole lot of things going from three. I think they only had 2 made threes on the night. But that three where he had the little ball fake and knocked down the three, you could almost kind of see in his body language, all right, now we're back. We're in a situation where we can kind of get things going here. And he steadied things down. And a lot of times what gets overlooked with him on the defensive end of the floor, Rick, is he doesn't come down there on those scrapes and slap like you see a lot of guys come in. He comes down there with 2 hands and either leads to a turnover or a jump ball. He gets his team probably a possession each game with his willingness to kind of come down there and not just stick his nose down in there, but go after it with 2 hands and come out with a ball as a result.
And I will say he's also such a smart basketball player. He realized very early that the officials were going to allow the defender, when the ball was being brought up the court, to be very physical. He got into Solo Ball. He got into Silas Demery. He got into Malachi Smith. And I think that led to some frustration for those players who all got in foul trouble later in the game. Now, Merez Johnson also got into a little bit of foul trouble, but stayed on the floor, ended up with 4 fouls. The more important numbers: 12 points, 10 rebounds, a couple of blocks, altered other shots. And Sean, his hustle, he made so many plays that just came down to effort. Those can't be measured on the box score in the stat sheet, but they were extremely important to Michigan.
Well, his motor has continual supply of oil because it doesn't get hot, it doesn't slow down, and he showed it at Illinois last year. This is a guy that on the rebounding part of his ball game was outstanding. Averaged 7 rebounds per ball game in about 17 minutes of action. He carried that over to Michigan, and the other thing you could kind of see with his development, much more comfortable with his back to the basket. They would run some things down there. Not a great three-point shooter, but became a little bit more capable from that, a little bit more comfortable with that. He's improved his foul shooting. You can tell he put in the work to add to the intangibles that you talked about. Tangibly, he's made as big a jump as anyone on this squad when you take a look at his free throw shooting percentage, his ability to make the most of the minutes out there on the floor, and provided a physical presence, which I think, especially at times, freed up Mara to kind of do his thing. Because if it looked like they were going to go right at Mara, man, it wasn't too long before you saw Johnson over there going, take a little chunk of this.
And then as we go to the bench, you have the performances of Trey McKinney, who continues to hit big-time shots, and the effort and energy of Roddy Gale, one of the first transfers into Dusty May's program, not this season, but last season, coming over from Ohio State, then deciding to remain, which is obviously a part of the story as well. Both those guys gave huge minutes.
And Roddy Gale last year, a starter for the preponderance of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a lot of starts, but went to the bench almost exclusively this season. That putback dunk we showed you a little bit earlier, that was a huge momentum shift. And his ability from the guard spot and willingness to come in there and rebound and help out in there against a very physical UConn squad, not just going in there to rebound, but going in there with a purpose and grabbing it with 2 hands. Look, his stat line wasn't fantastic. If you were just a casual observer and you looked at the stat sheet, you're like, what are you talking about Roddy Gale about? His game tonight was something that you had to see to really appreciate, especially the physicality he provided to kind of counter what UConn was trying to do.
I wonder what Yaxel Lendeborg is feeling right now. You can see both the jubilation, Sean, and the exhaustion on this young man as he walks off the floor in Indianapolis celebrating this national championship. I know he wasn't himself. I know he didn't have his best game. But the fact that he was just on the floor, I think tonight meant a ton to this team in terms of them knowing how much he cared about the game, them knowing how much he cared about him. I loved his approach, even though he wasn't able to be anywhere close to 100%.
And I'll continue with the care theme there, how much he cared about the guys he was playing with. Yep. Because throughout the course of the year, you would see Lendeborg get on the floor after a loose ball. Look, and if you've got a guy who's going to make a lot of money in the NBA, who's showing his willingness to get on the floor and dig out loose balls, guard maybe for long periods of time the best offensive player that the opposition could put up there, that says a lot. And you could tell that his teammates respected him, and that respect was returned from the player of the year in the Big Ten.
Elliot Cadeau still has plenty of energy left. And there's the smile because, you know, Merez Johnson, usually post-game, he's doing that whole bodyguard thing behind who's ever getting interviewed. But right now, understandably so, all smiles. I wonder what it's like right now inside that Michigan locker room for the players who aren't heading to the press conference.
They're going to have some fun. And
yeah.
they've earned it. And they've earned it because they put in the work. And it showed in a game, especially tonight, Rick, where you knew it was going to be physical. It was. UConn came in, they made no bones about how they wanted to play, and they had their way in terms of pace for long periods of time, and with very few exceptions. I would say certainly single-digit possessions, Michigan did not get frustrated, and they were able to find a way to win. And it wasn't the most glamorous. This is a team with a lot of glamour if you take a look at a lot of their offensive statistics, but it was the defensive end of the floor and their willingness to continue to attack and salt the game away from the foul line. Man, that's a champion.
Well, because I think when you look at this score, if you had taken the names away from where the numbers are and you just put up 69-63 on the scoreboard and you asked a basketball analyst, anybody like yourself, someone who covers college basketball from year to year, this is going to be the final score of the game. And I'm not going to tell you which team had 69 and which team had 63. I'm going to guess that the large majority of folks who cover college basketball would say UConn found a way to win this game.
Especially if you were also to throw in there the blind resume, the three-point shooting of Michigan.
And rebounding.
I mean, they found a way. And, because UConn, if UConn was to win this ball game, it had to be in the 60s. There was no question about it. They knew it. They didn't run from it. They said, this is what we want to do. We have to do it this way. Gives us our best chance to win. We're not going to beat you from three-point line. They were able to grind out a win over Duke, where they missed a ton of threes. They only finished 5 of 23 from behind the arc in that 19-point comeback. You knew you were going to get a gritty performance from UConn. They certainly performed that tonight, had a couple of guys with double digits in their own right. But again, it was Michigan's grit on the defensive end of the floor, Morez Johnson's willingness to kind of go in there along with Roddy Gale and do a lot of the dirty work. That's how you win a game like this.
And as we await Michigan's post-championship victory press conference in Indianapolis, we're going to take you now to Lucas Oil Stadium and hear from the UConn perspective. Here's Husky head coach Dan Hurley.
Number one, congratulations to Michigan. Just incredibly talented, incredibly imposing team physically, obviously well coached, great staff. Just overall, just a tremendous university. With what they're able to accomplish in sports. So obviously, for us, it's tough. Again, we did not come here for watches. We came here for rings. It's one of the better teams that I've played. Certainly since I've been a college basketball coach now. They're legit. They're definitely deserve to win the national championship. They're clearly the best team in the country this year. They're just so hard to score against at the rim. I could talk about the threes that we missed, and I thought we had a lot of good threes that we missed, but they just made it so tough on us around the rim. There was probably what even got us more than the missed threes was some of those rim shots, solos, transition basket. I think they cut it to 4. Could have put some serious game pressure on them. They changed so many shots around the rim. They're just so tall.
There's no doubt Mara affected so many shots. Mara and Johnson didn't actually have that many blocks in this game. It was how much guys like Terrace Reed struggled to actually see and find the rim when he got what he thought were actually fairly decent shots down low. It's why UConn ended up shooting just 31%. They were 9 of 33 from 3. To Dan Hurley's credit, they got a couple of good looks early, but then they really had to start jacking up some threes when they got down by double digits in the second half. They made it a game, got it to 4 with the ball in their hands and a chance to make this a one-possession game. But again, Michigan's defense came up huge, and when the Wolverines got the ball back, they were able to get the ball into the hands of very good free throw shooters. And despite a couple of late misses from Roddy Gale, 25 of 28 from the free throw line. Michigan has now started its post-victory press conference as we take you to Indianapolis to listen in.
Yeah, what a way to wrap up the 25-26 college basketball season with this group. I want to begin by thanking last year's team. At Michigan, we came up a little bit short, but those guys laid the foundation, established an identity for us, and also helped attract these guys to come in and chase this dream together. And secondly, I want to thank our FAU guys, the team and staff that really, this is one time I'm making it about me, that really helped us grow together And that was the first time I'd been with a group that was truly sacrificial, where we were about each other. And because of that, we all improved so much. And this team's done the same thing. It's when you bring a group this talented together and they decide from the beginning that they're going to do it this way, and they never waver and they never change. That's probably the most uncommon thing in athletics now, and it's a tribute to their character, but also those in their circles around them, their coaches, their parents, their mentors. They allowed these guys to give themselves up for the group, and it's never guaranteed, but for these guys to cut down the nets after all they sacrifice is pretty special.
We're looking for questions for Elliot, Yaxel, or Trey first. We're going to go to the second row. Well, we can go to the first row first. We'll go to Mitch, then we'll go to the second row, then we'll go to the center. We're going to have a nice time, guys.
Okay, thank you. This is for Yaxel and Elliot. The game wasn't a typical Michigan game in terms of your shooting, assists, 3 points. Almost none of that was going on. How did you guys find a way to sort of shift your game in the middle of the game to almost a wholly different identity and still win?
Elliot first, please, then Yaxel.
All year we've been just finding ways to win, and we made 2 threes the whole game. We wasn't making shots. We weren't we had a couple assists, not as many as we usually do, but we constantly just been finding ways to win all year, no matter how everybody's playing.
To piggyback off of that, early on in the season, we went through our struggles offensively, trying to find our rhythm. What stuck out and what really brought us together was how, unselfish we were eventually in those moments, and our defensive toughness, and whenever our offense isn't rolling, we find a way to make plays with our defense and make it lead to quick offense.
Second row, same area of the room.
Chris Ballas at the Wolverine on 3. Yaxel, when did you know you were going to go? What percentage were you at? And were you a little bit tentative early and a little bit scared to move on that much?
Yeah, I knew I was going to go as soon as I got back on the court. The first game, I knew there was no way I was going to miss this game no matter what was going on. I was very tentative this game. Yeah, I felt like I was, pretty much holding our team down. I feel like we could have been up by way more early in the game, later on in the game. I kept having opportunities to make plays, and I couldn't make the play. But these guys stuck with me no matter what. They all believed in me. I was, I was trying to push through my mental and, physical battle I was dealing with myself. But, these guys really helped me out and helped me push through.
Up front in the center.
Tom Crawford, Press Pass, Fox 47, Lansing. This is for Yax. There was a time late in the second half, you came out, you looked frustrated. I saw it on a TV monitor. LJ kind of was motivating you at that moment, and seemed like, and then you went in the game and you scored a couple buckets real quick. Can you, since he had a similar injury, or he was, perhaps share that conversation and what he has meant to you?
Yeah, he was telling me to stop being so hard on myself. He was basically saying, like, I'm one of the reasons why we're here, like one of the biggest reasons that we got to this moment, and nobody's going to, downplay me or what I've done this year because of one bad game. So, he just kept telling me to keep going no matter what. He believes in me. All of us, the rest of the team has my back no matter what. And, just find a way to get easy buckets. Coach Joyner also came to me and talked to me about the Anthony Davis game where he was having a bad game and he found a way to, impact the team. So I just tried to find a way to do something to help the team out, and eventually it started working out.
Up front on the left side.
Steve Kornacki, the Kornacki Wolverine Report. Elliot, when you came here to this tournament, everybody was forecasting who would be the most valuable player of the tournament and such. And when you got the trophy, I know that trophy right there is what means the most to you. But what did it mean to you to be honored like that?
Man, it means the world to me. Like, I'm just so proud of myself, where I came from. Like, last year I was really down on myself. A lot of people doubted me. And I'm just so proud of myself for me to be able to say I was the most outstanding player and win a national championship at the same time.
To the left of the aisle.
Bob Winowski, Detroit News. Follow up to that, Elliot, down on yourself last year. What did you guys see when you first got together, where you started talking about winning championships, when you maybe barely even knew each other and you didn't know what you still had in you coming here? Where did that come from?
Yeah, I just saw so much talent around me since day one, and just like a unique set of talent, like 3 bigs at the same time, switching 1 through 4. I just seen like a unique type of basketball that we was playing, And I knew like it would be a mismatch nightmare for every single team that we played, and it was this year.
Up front on the right side, Mike.
Yeah, Elliot, your job obviously changed when LJ went down. A lot more responsibility on you, and somehow you went from there to, in these last 2 games, playing maybe the 2 best games you've played all year. Can you explain that journey, how you were able to traverse that through the course of this month?
Yeah, I feel like I've been playing the same from when LJ went down. I feel like I just got the ball more, and I just played more minutes. I just had higher usage, so it seems like my stats were higher. But, I think LJ for, even if he's out, he's still supporting us. He's literally an assistant coach out there, and it just inspires me to go out there and just play for him.
Third row on the right.
Congratulations, guys. This question is for Elliot and Yaxel. You guys both transferred in at the start of this season. What have you seen in terms of your fit with the rest of the team, and how have you seen yourselves grow since you become a part of this Michigan team?
Once we transferred in, I know, especially for me, the whole University of Michigan welcomed me with open arms. I've seen many Twitter arguments of these guys going back and forth with everybody saying, like, we deserve the spot here, and they're going to cherish every moment of us being here. And shout out to Will, Roddy, Namari, LJ, especially those guys. Once we all got together, they were super genuine with us the whole way. They tucked us in under their wing, and they showed us the Michigan way. They could have easily got hurt or something because the new guys were coming in, stealing their minutes, stealing their points. But they didn't care. All they cared about was winning, and look where it led us.
This is the yellow mic, CBS in the center.
Adi Joseph, CBS. Yaxel, now that you have a championship trophy, can you tell us a little bit more about the injury? Are you going to need follow-up surgery, follow-up consultation? Is there any, what did it take to get back on the court tonight?
I hope I didn't mess anything up any more than I already was. I'm going to find that out in a couple of days, once we finish celebrating. But, it took a lot to get on the court, honestly, and to stay on there. I was dealing with a lot of mental issues today. These guys all, leaned in on me and helped me out, helped me dig myself out the hole, man, and, just continue to keep fighting. Chris, shout out to him because he was with me pretty much all day, all night, trying to make sure that I was even 60, 50% able to play, and I did the best I could regardless of the outcome, but it feels really, really good to be a champion, to be on top of the world, man.
Second row on the left side.
Haziel Richardson, the Daily Wildcat. Trey, this question is for you. What about your teammates just makes you the most proud to say that you won a national championship with them?
I think just the way throughout the season, everybody on this team is extremely talented, and for us to be able to, sacrifice something for ourselves, a lot of us, could be somewhere else, doing more than what we've done this season, but I think it just shows that this team is super selfless. And I've never been around such a talented group of guys that, are willing to take a lesser role for somebody next to them. So I'm just really grateful to be around this team, and, I'm going to cherish this moment for the rest of my life.
We want to thank and congratulate Elliot, Yaxel, and Trey, 2026 national champions. They're going to head back to the locker room right now, which is open until 12:56.
Congrats, champ.
Congrats, guys.
Congrats, champ.
First one's up front on the left, Dan.
Dan Wolken, Yahoo Sports. Congratulations, Dusty. It took you a very long time in your career to get to a point where you could pick your next move, essentially. What made you think that you could do it at Michigan and do it quickly once you got to that point?
The hardest part, and first, hold that question real quick, Dan. I want to, Elliot beat me to it. LJ Kaysen was playing as well as any backup guard in all the country, and probably playing as well as anyone on our roster. And at Illinois, he's hooping and has the most Florida man injury in the history of injuries. And the next day, you would think he retired and took over an assistant coaching spot. His spirits were up. He's immediately pouring into the guys, trying to learn, pick their brain, because he had a different perspective. And that's very indicative of this team. He never one day brought negative energy because he felt sorry for himself. And for LA to shout him out, beat me to it, is pretty impressive as well. But I The toughest part about jobs, and this has always been my opinion because I've just taken jobs. My wife used to get angry with me because I just call her and say, hey, what do you think? Do you mind if I take this job? For whatever reason. And so now you don't get a chance to really go feel the place and see it. And even FAU, I went to see it, and before I'd seen anything, I'd already signed the contract. That's how impulsive I am, and whatever the case. So yeah, Anna will give you a better background than me on all this stuff. And living in Ypsilanti when I was a young assistant in Eastern Michigan, I wasn't that familiar with Michigan other than '89 and being a fan of the game, and just the feelings that people had, the pride they had in their university. I just thought that was really, really cool. We thought it was a great time to get back to the Midwest. We were to stage our life, or we were empty nesters and just wanted something different. And then just felt like Michigan was a place, ultimately, with the changing landscape, that we could retain really good players, even if it wasn't going great for them. It was going to be hard to leave. And even Terrace is a great example. He had options to go anywhere in the country, and it was difficult for him. Based on my conversations, it was difficult for him to leave the University of Michigan and the relationships that he had made and all the people that poured into him. So I just felt like that's the type of place that I'd love to coach at.
We have a question in the front row.
Clayton Safety with the Wolverine. Coach, congrats. I mean, you just won the national championship. You talk a lot about doing something eternal. You're around Terry Mills a lot. What do you think this accomplishment is going to do for this group the rest of their lives and beyond?
It further strengthens their bond, and we didn't need this for that to happen because of their actions all year. But to hang we talked about it early in the season, a center banner. Like we have a lot of, Michigan's got a proud tradition. There's a lot of banners on the side. There's one lonely banner up in the middle, and if we were having a bad practice or we didn't have our edge, we would remind them that if we're ever going to hang another banner so that one has some company, then we can't have these type of days, or we can't have these type of practices. And usually that was one way that we could refocus our group.
We have two in the front row toward the right. Mitch first.
Yeah, congratulations, Dusty. Mitch Alva, pre-press. Like I asked the players before, it seemed like this was a really unusual blueprint to try to win free throws, blocks, and steals. That's not kind of the Michigan thing. Were you conscious of that was the way you were going to have to do it? Did you talk to the players about, okay, if the other stuff's not working, this is what we have to do? Talk about like changing on the fly.
Yeah, early in games, we can tell how the game's being played. And so then we talk about how we have to adjust and we have to figure out solutions based on how they're guarding us and all the things. We actually thought the basket would open up a little bit in the second half. We felt like we were going to make shots in the second half. We generated, I think there were 2 threes in the first half that we didn't really love those attempts, and you're not going to love them all. The rest of them we thought were really good offense, and the ball just didn't go in. And so we're trying not to result in all that we do and just stay with the process and evaluate the contributions and how it felt. And so then early in the second half, the game got a little bit chippy and physical, and so we thought this is going to be a game we just have to figure it out. We started going offensive, defensive early, offensive, defensive substitutions early, and UConn was dominating us on the glass. Credit to them; they were as motivated and determined as any team we played on the offensive glass. But we did feel like we were defending well enough that we were going to be able to find enough baskets.
Up front on the right side.
Jake Singer with Maize and Brew. First of all, congratulations, Dusty. A lot of the players just now were talking about your assistant coaches being so instrumental in getting them ready in game, before the game. Can you talk about your cohesive coaching staff and how much credit it was to them to getting you guys to this point, winning this national championship?
I could go on until tomorrow. That's one of our secret sauces is we have an incredibly talented group of coaches that never make it about themselves. And look, this is an ego-driven business. This is a lot of alpha males with great egos, and that's why they're successful doing what they do. And these guys have made our players the number 1, 2, and 3 priority from day one over their own careers, over their own individual attention and accolades and things like that. And so just it's hard for our players not to follow the team, which is the staff, when they're modeling that behavior every day. And they deserve a big chunk of credit for this.
Second row on the right side, Mike.
Mike DeCourcy, the Sporting News. Dusty, I think from the public standpoint anyway, you brought in Elliott before even the three bigs. And so he said he doubted himself. The team he played on last year did not have a great year. Other than assists, he did not have a great year. What did you see in him that you thought he could get you to this moment?
It's a great question. We had seen him in prep ranks, and we had seen him in high school ranks, and we felt like we needed a quarterback, a pass-first quarterback on the floor at all times. And with Elliott, once we got him, we were able to sell him. And even I coached Sean May years ago in AAU basketball. And so I called Sean, and I said, and he gave me all the intel and everything on the background. And I just said, let me ask you one question. Would 17, 18-year-old Sean May, who was a McDonald's All-American, NBA player, All-American, all of it, would he want to play with Elliott Cadeau? And he said, explicative, yeah, absolutely, let's go. And I said, that's all I need to know, because Sean is one of the smartest, best players I've ever been around. And so I valued his opinion that much. And that was a stamp on the intangibles and whether I thought we could win this with him, because on film it was there. I mean, he's a savant and he's brilliant. And so he's made us better coaches, and hopefully we've helped him become a better player.
Right side toward the back of the room, 40.
Hey, Dusty, Pat 40 from Sports Illustrated. You talked there about Elliott, but the group as a whole, when you're putting it together, you never really know for sure. How rewarding is it to have it turn out this well?
I think the most rewarding part is they never changed. Like this game, we weren't very good early in the year. The first two exhibitions, we beat St. John's, but they weren't St. John's yet. And then we didn't play well. And at that point, we considered pivoting and changing our lineup and going a different direction and maybe admitting failure for our vision. And because of our staff, we really, I remember the day like it was yesterday. We were in the conference room and we did a deep dive in everything that you can come up with to try to predict whether we thought it would work. And once we left that meeting, we were more committed than ever that this is going to work, and these are the reasons why. Now, we didn't feel like it was like bamboo. We didn't feel like the bamboo was just going to shoot to the sky the next week in Vegas, but it did, and then it happens quickly where we're playing at that level. And that's typically when it gets more difficult. I've been on assistant on staffs when you play like that, and that's when it really gets tough because there's more tension, there's more of everything coming at your guys. And for them not to waver on how they, I guess, continue to give, to me, that's probably the hardest part and most rewarding thing that these guys did.
Final question, the final four. Lindsay.
Hey, Dusty, Lindsay Schnell from The Athletic. I went up during the game into the very last row and sat with a bunch of Michigan fans, some of whom had paid a lot of money for a pretty bad view. I wondered, what is it like to coach at a program where you have that type of fan support? And also, when you came to the Final Four, when you were young, did you ever sit in those really bad seats when you were a coach that was making no money or trying to get in?
No, I never had tickets. I never attended a game until Mike Davis made it in 2002. And at that time, he had already offered me a position on the staff, even though he didn't have one yet, coming from USC. So we had played in the same regional. We got upset by UNC Wilmington, and he created a position to bring me back home. But in that process, they continued to advance. And so he got me great tickets right behind the team and started that process of acclimating to their program. And so that was the only time I ever went. And so, yeah, the tickets, all these people that pay hard-earned money and give us their time to support us, it's appreciated. We're very, very grateful.
We want to thank and congratulate Dusty May, the head coach of the 2026 national champion Michigan Wolverines.
Thank you, guys.
Dusty May, forever known as a national championship head coach. Our post-championship reaction continues next. You'll hear from Roddy Gale and Adai Mara after Michigan's national title win over UConn. It seems more official when it goes on social media. That's what Sean Morris tells everybody because he's always clicking and scrolling. And when he does right now, all he sees is maize and blue as Michigan has won the 2006 national championship in men's basketball. Roddy Gale, a huge energy giver in the Wolverines' win over UConn. He's with Dave Revson.
Joined now by Roddy Gale. describe the emotions when that clock hit 0.
Yeah, I feel like every emotion possible. Just seeing the excitement on everybody's faces just feels like it's a relief to be able to kind of feel everything, all the sacrifices we had through the course of the season and be able to just kind of reap the benefits of our hard work.
Describe the locker room scene for me when you guys came in here.
Oh, man. As you can see, a ton of water everywhere.
Yeah. You got the goggles on. So
yeah, man. I was a little prepared, but not enough. I just think just pure excitement. I feel like everybody's really excited for each other no matter what, and that was a big key for our success this year.
It's interesting. Obviously, you were here last year, and so you had an influx of new players, 4 guys from the portal. You had a core group that was already here. What was the challenge of integrating those guys and getting everyone to be this consummate team that you guys turned out to be?
It was actually pretty easy this year. I think Coach May really recruited guys with great personalities. It allowed us to build our chemistry off the court, and I think that just kind of gelled and built our relationships on the court. I feel like our ability to be able to kind of feel happy when other people is being successful really drove our run.
Yours has been quite a journey from upstate New York to Ohio State to Michigan. Can you put into words kind of what you're feeling right now as you reflect on everything you've been through?
Nah, man, I can't put together words. I feel like, I was just a kid from Niagara Falls, New York, with just a dream to be able to play at this level, be able to play professionally. And obviously the path that I had just kind of leading to this moment, just very excited, obviously for, younger kids to be able to kind of look up to me, especially from my hometown, just to see that it's possible.
Well, Roddy, congratulations on being a national champ.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Rick?
Well, Dave, only one team in the history of men's college basketball that won the national championship finished that year with more wins than this year's Michigan squad. That 11-12 Kentucky team had 38 wins when they clinched the national title. Michigan, with its 37th win, tying both the UConn team from 2 years ago and the 07-08 Kansas Jayhawks. Take you right back to Indianapolis and check in once again with Dave Revson.
Here with Adai Mara, who is considerably taller than I am. Adai, national champion, congratulations. Take us through that game. It was not a typical Michigan game, right? You guys were forced to play a style a little bit differently than you'd like to. How were you able to come out ahead?
Yeah, as you said, it was different. We like to play fast. They like to play slow. So it was a slow game. We knew it was going to be a game with not a lot of points. So every basket meant a lot. But I think just relying on what we been doing the whole season, in defense. We knew that if we were playing good defense, we were going to be able to do this. So I think just by doing that and keeping everyone together through all the game, it was the key to win all.
Yeah, one of the things that really stood out to me was the defensive performance, and you guys have been the #1 defense in terms of efficiency all year. After overwhelming opponents with your offense these first 5 games of the tournament, to be able to rely on your defense to come through, what does that say about this team?
Well, we took that in the first part of the season as a goal to be the first, the best defensive team in the country. So as soon as we made it, we were we got to keep doing this. We got to rely on defense because as soon as we were making stops and running in the fast break, hitting threes in transition, we were having so much fun because it's good to play with that in a high pace. Everyone gets more shots, everyone can get more points. So as soon as we were doing that and we were playing a good defense, we were able to enjoy the game and having fun. But I think the defense was one of the keys. So people is talking about or shooting or offense, but I think defense was the biggest thing.
So the clock has struck midnight. It's your 21st birthday.
Yeah, it is. It is. Now I gotta talk with the team to see what we do to celebrate it. But
I have some ideas as to what you might be. If you want to talk about some thoughts, I have some thoughts. I'll share it with you when we stop rolling the camera.
Off camera, yeah.
Adai, congratulations and happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
Adai Mara. Let's go back to Chicago.
Wrapped in that Spanish flag. What a way to celebrate your 21st birthday. Slightly different than the way that Sean and I celebrated our 21st. Rick Pizzo, Sean Morris, back here in studio. So great to hear from those guys. Obviously, the emotions now have settled down a little bit. an hour and change removed from the national championship win. But to hear from Roddy Gale and to hear how selfless he was in this, his second year with the program after being a starter, after transferring from Ohio State, and to take a back seat to those transfers that came in this year, guys like Mara and Elliot Cadeau and Yaxel Lendeborg, to be willing to do that, it's all part of the story that led to Michigan's national title.
Yeah, I think Roddy Gale is a great example of this old adage. You know, if you don't take seconds before everyone else gets first, then everybody eats. And I think in basketball, especially with a team like this, no one was willing to go through the proverbial buffet line until everyone else had a chance to have some success. Again, witnessed by the fact that the player of the year in the Big Ten, Yaxel Lendeborg, was the only player on this team that averaged north of 30 minutes per ballgame. So the minutes were dispersed, the opportunities were dispersed, and a guy like Roddy Gale, who came in with tremendous accolades into Ohio State out of Niagara Falls, goes to Michigan last year, a starter for most of the year, willing to take a step back and assume a different role. You could almost see not just a sense of gratification, but also a sense of relief. Look, this is what we talked about, what we wanted to do. This is what we thought we were supposed to do, and now they've accomplished it.
And in hearing from Adai Mara, you're hearing from a young man who has become a legitimately explosive basketball player on the offensive end to go along with that defense that has always been kind of his calling card and his ability to block and alter shots. Sean, he has actually just started to scratch the surface. I think Dusty May would be the first to say Adai doesn't even understand how good he can possibly be.
Well, and you mentioned all the things that he's shown. His athleticism at that size is his footwork, but his ability to run the floor, to change direction, and he's also started to understand the fact that, look, you don't have to block shots on the defensive end to be impactful. Just your presence and making sure that you're visible will alter and discourage shots as well.
69-63 is the final number as Michigan gets it done inside Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, beating UConn to win the school's second national championship, first since 1989, and giving the Big Ten a title in men's basketball for the first time since 2000. Let's take you back now to Indianapolis. Dave Revson and Rafael Davis with much more.
Rick, thanks. A 69-63 national championship win for Michigan over UConn. And Rafael, you think about Michigan in this NCAA tournament, they had averaged more than 94 points per game. So you held about 25 points under that in this performance. UConn needed to slow this game down. Michigan was averaging 72 possessions in the tournament, 65 in this one. Michigan really did ultimately beat UConn at its own game.
Yeah, and that's what great teams do. Great teams can beat you in a lot of different ways, and that's what great coaches do. They adjust, because you look at Yaxel, he's the guy that gets Michigan out in transition. He's the guy that pushes that break and puts pressure on the basket. So when you don't have him at full go, you've got to find another way. So I love what Michigan did, especially in that first half. Shots aren't going in. They got to the bonus, and then after they got to that 1-and-1 bonus, they shot no more threes the rest of the half, drive the basketball, get to the free throw line. I learned this from Coach Izzo. If you're not making shots, you got to control the free throw line. And you look at Michigan's ability to get to that line and knock them down, that's the game. So you look at Michigan and Elliot Cadeau, where you have a strong point guard that can play a lot of different ways, that can get you in transition, that can play in the half court. That leads to a lot of success.
The 25 made free throws for Michigan, the most for any team in a national title game in 17 years. Michigan also plus 114 overall in this NCAA tournament in terms of point differential. That is the most ever for any Big Ten national champion. Look, this was not the same dominant performance that we saw in some of these earlier rounds, even in the two most recent rounds in the Elite Eight or the Final Four, but you still put it all together. And again, the largest margin of combined victory for any Big Ten team ever in this tournament. I think it begs the question, where does this team stack up?
I mean, they're the best team in the Big Ten ever to play. I mean, you look at the defense, you look at the offense, you look at how many ways they can beat you in modern-day basketball. I mean, you win a national championship in today's game, only making 2 threes, and you lock down. I don't care what the analytics say. Danny Hurley is one of the better offensive coaches to ever coach this game. So you put that level of defense on UConn in the second half, it separates you. You look at the dominance they've had all season long. They were expected to be here. They got here. And when they were here, without one of their better players being 100%, they still got the job done. I do not know how many teams could get to this point in the season, lose their player of the year in the conference and the first team All-American, and still go out there and beat one of the better dynasties that we've seen in college basketball.
I agree. Certainly, you have to factor in the fact that Yaxel Lindenborg is, again, the most valuable player in the Big Ten, the Big Ten Player of the Year, and clearly hobbled, clearly compromised in this game. You look at the margins of victory throughout the season for Michigan and all the historic marks that they put together. I think there's an argument to be made. Again, we saw the Indiana 1976 undefeated national champs honored here tonight. They are clearly in that conversation for the best team ever. Honestly, the team the year before was probably better had Scott May not gotten hurt. But at this point, when you're going back that far to find comparisons, it speaks to how great this team is. And I think one thing in college basketball, and this is part of why we love it, Rafael, and part of the reason I love this tournament, is you can be the best team can be knocked out, right? And it's not every year that we see the team that was the best team all year in college basketball end up as the national champ. This year, they were clearly the best team, and they end up cutting down the nets.
And they did it together. You saw at the end of the game, they all surrounded each other. You saw Damar go chase that basketball, put it in his shirt because he wanted that ball for the team. So when you got a team that's that talented, a team that's that together, a team that understands that they are competing to win. I mean, coaches always say, winning breeds buy-in. But this team was bought in before they ever won a game. So you look at how they did it. It didn't start at that MTE where they beat Gonzaga by 40. This started in June. This started in those workouts. This started in the preseason training. You saw those guys come into their exhibition game, knock off St. John's, and gather around each other and say, we're going to win a national championship. You have to love everything that these guys put together from start to finish. I mean, when you have an unselfish leader like you do in Yaxel Lindenberg, a dude that demands shots, that could average 20, 25 a game, when he's able to submit himself to the team, say, you guys shoot it, I'll shoot it when needed, that makes for a really good team. When your best player is your hardest worker and one of the better workers and defenders in the country, that's when you get to this point.
One of the things in talking to college basketball coaches is the challenge of the portal, and they talk a lot about, everyone likens it to speed dating, that you just don't quite know what you're getting. And I think you're pointing out, Yaxel Lindenborg did this kind of sublimating yourself to the culture, saying, hey, I want to be great and I want to go to a place where I can win, but I understand that it's going to be in this team environment. And that's where Dusty May, that's the genius here, is to find a bunch of guys and meld them together. I mean, I understand, look, you need the resources, you need the money, all of that. But lots of teams spent money on players, and only one ended up as the national champ. And let's point out, too, Michigan brought 4 significant players back from last year who were important contributors to this team. You had a freshman, Trey McKinney, come in and contribute as well. So it's not just going into the portal, but it's melding it all together and coming up with the best team in the country.
And it's not as if they went and got the best players in the portal. You look at Elliot Cadeau, UNC fans had given up on him. They said he couldn't shoot, couldn't play here. Damar averaged 13, 14 minutes a game for UCLA and could not get off the bench. And then you even look at Morez Johnson. Coach Underwood went with Thomas Slavivicic and then brought Zavamir in. So you look at those guys, they came to Michigan not just to play, but to prove themselves as winners. They were underlooked and undervalued, and now they're champions. You look at those dudes, they bet on themselves, and it worked out, and that's why I love the transfer portal.
They have proven themselves, that's for sure. You said proven themselves as winners. How about 37 wins, tied for the most in the history of the Big Ten, with the great 2005 Illinois team that ended up as a national runner-up. No runner-up for Michigan. They are the national champs, Rick.
You guys bring up some really interesting points as it relates to the portal, because Dusty May didn't just go out, Sean, and grab the best players available in the portal. He took a little bit of a risk on Elliot Cadeau. No one really knew much about Yaxel Lindenborg. Morez Johnson was a guy who we knew had a high ceiling, but was going to have to compete with other bigs. And somehow at the end, Dusty likes to use that phrase, secret sauce. He never uses it to refer to himself, But you could make the argument that he was the main ingredient of that secret sauce, bringing all these guys together.
Well, I think it starts with an honest evaluation, especially now with the way rosters move and have to be constructed. Okay, what are our greatest needs? And sometimes it's not statistically in terms of scoring. Cadeau's a great example of this. I think he had an idea of how he wanted to play, and they had a very, very good point guard in Trey Donaldson last year. But Trey Donaldson needed to score. He knew with the kind of offensive weaponry that was there, not that Cadeau can't score, he needed somebody that was going to be the proverbial table setter and make sure that the ball got where it needed to go and then can run things in terms of the traditional point guard responsibilities and guarding that position as well. So he knew what he wanted there, and then he kind of had the template put in place with the two bigs. All right, now how do I find somebody who's not going to necessarily replace Danny Wolf, but a big that can handle the ball, who can play multiple positions, who can shoot the ball a little bit. Lindenborg fit that. And then, you know, Mara is just like the proverbial, he's a once in a maybe 10 or 15 year kind of guy with his ability to impact the game without scoring. So I think he had an idea, he had a framework, he had a blueprint of how he wanted to play, and then he found guys that kind of fit those roles. And then to get them all to buy in together, I think that's as impressive as anything, because this team is extremely talented, but we've seen a lot of extremely talented teams in the portal era that didn't come anywhere near to accomplishing what this team did.
You know, speaking of history, we know that it often repeats itself, and I have proof. 37 years ago, this was Glenn Rice holding up the Shock the World Boys Go Blue sign. Yaxel Lindenborg in 2026 doing the exact same thing. Now, I don't know if this team shocked the world quite like that 89 team did, because Michigan was a #1 seed and considered by many to be the best team in the country heading in, but still pretty cool stuff. 37 years later, almost the exact same scene. Of course, the head coaches were a little bit different. Dusty May was what at that point? Barely in middle school, maybe just about to start high school at best.
And their coach that led them to the national championship got the job on an interim basis going into the NCAA tournament, meaning the 89 team. I was young with a future once in 1989. Now, as you know, Rick, I have neither.
Well, Dusty May obviously had a pretty bright future. Here is the newly crowned national championship head coach with Dave Rebson.
Here with national championship coach Dusty May. How's that sound, Coach?
Well, it doesn't seem real. Very grateful to do this for the University of Michigan, for our players and their families, and also the Big Ten Conference.
You say it doesn't seem real. Why?
Our program, everything's about getting to the next thing. You're trying to get to the next scout, the next practice, the next weight session. And now this group, there is no next for this team. Obviously, there will be a nucleus coming back that you transition with, but what a way to go out. There's, one team each year gets to finish on Monday night. You dream it, but you never think it's possible, and these guys made it happen.
How did they make it happen on this night? What stood out about the performance?
They did exactly what they've done for the other 39 games this year. They leaned on each other. They played very smart, sound basketball, and every night the game requires something different, and these guys adjusted to the game and just found different solutions, and they took what the game gave them.
Now, what does it say about this team? This was your lowest field goal percentage of the season, and you end up winning the national championship on your worst shooting day of the year.
Well, when you're roster building, you talk about mitigating risk. What are the ways that on a given night you could lose? And we felt like we could overcome when we put together a roster without a lot of historical shooters, guys that hadn't shot the ball well. And so we knew that was one risk. And so there were other things we felt like we had to be elite at if we were going to overcome a night where we shot the ball like we did tonight.
One of the things you and I talked about yesterday, kind of in anticipation of this, was your journey. And so now here you are, right, an Indiana kid, you win a national championship in your home state. What does all of that mean to you as you consider where you started and where you are tonight?
It means the world. I'm just so grateful for the coaches, the players that have helped me on my journey and poured into me. And I want to especially thank my wife for the sacrifices that she's made for our family, so us ball coaches can chase our dreams and just accept a job and leave the next day to go try to build a recruiting class. And so you just, at this moment, you got to thank all the people that allowed us to be here.
Well, Coach, congratulations on being a national champion. Thanks so much for your time, and go enjoy yourself.
I do like the sound of that. Thanks, Dave.
All right, Dusty, thank you. Yep. Rick?
All right, Dave, Dusty, thank you. Final thoughts, Sean, on what we saw from Michigan, both on Monday night and over the course of this remarkable season.
To follow up the performance that they had against Arizona, where they just dominated a 36-win team and were able to take them out of everything they wanted, they were also able to overcome a different challenge against UConn, a team that wanted to get physical. Michigan, up to the challenge, found a way to get it done.
The Wolverines are national champions, and our coverage is not done. After the break, another full hour of the Big Show comes your way. Hail to the victors, hail to the champions. Michigan has won the 2026 Men's National Championship as that trophy makes its way back to Ann Arbor. For the first time since 1989 and just the second time in program history, the national championship in men's basketball belongs to the Michigan Wolverines. Welcome inside this special championship edition of The Big Show. Alongside Sean Morris, I'm Rick Pizzo. It was a remarkable season for the Wolverines, from dominating early season tournaments, beating top 10 teams by 40 points, to finding a way to win in a very different style of championship game. Michigan just got it done from start to finish.
They were able to play UConn's game in the national championship game and find a way to beat them. This is a team in Michigan that had more than held their own on the boards. They were +7 in rebounding margin throughout the course of the year. They get out-rebounded against UConn. Gave up 22 offensive rebounds. Still found a way to win. They didn't knock down the three. They shoot 37% from behind the arc on the year. 2 of 15 from behind the arc. They still found a way to win. It wasn't the most glamorous way to win with a team that has a lot of high-profile stars, but defensively they were able to show enough mettle and grit to get it done, and then they were able to ice the game from the foul line. So it wasn't a glamorous conclusion to what had been a storybook year, but the only thing that matters is the result.
First 5 games of the tournament, Michigan had been winning pretty. Final game of the tournament, with everything on the line, the Wolverines had to win gritty. Yaxel Lendeborg in the starting lineup, despite that injury early in the game that hobbled him against Arizona. He was not himself against UConn, but he was good enough. Lendeborg with the miss, Roddy Gale with the follow. This is the dictionary definition of a teammate having your back. Wolverines up by 4 at the break. Second half, Elliot Cadeau with the beautiful ball fake freezes the defender. 3 of his game-high 19 back at the Chrysler Center. They can taste it. Wolverines up by 11, now a 6-point game. Trey McKinney, dagger. 69-63, Michigan over UConn to win the national championship. The first for Dusty May, as Yaxel and company shock the world. Perhaps the biggest shock was the fact that Michigan was kept under 70 points in this game after scoring 90-plus in each of its first 5. They were the first team in the history of the NCAA tournament to do that, and even after one of its worst shooting performances of the season, the Wolverines still finished the 2026 NCAA tournament, averaging more than 90 points per game. We start our post-game reaction from Indianapolis as we check in with Dave Revson.
Yaxel Lendeborg with me now. Yaxel, first of all, congratulations on being a national champion. This was a rough night, obviously, from a physical point of view. Just give us a sense of what you were feeling out there.
I was feeling a little helpless. I did the best I can just to provide any kind of spark for the team. I feel like I was hurting us more than, helping, which really bummed me out. I didn't want to be, the reason why we lost this game. So, and I was getting into like a mental battle with myself. My teammates obviously sensed that. They seen me getting frustrated, and they started talking to me a lot more, started giving me more words of motivation. They really helped me dig myself out of the hole, so I'm just glad that those guys had my back, and I'm glad that I was able to help any kind of way I did.
Describe the pain you're in and the ways in which it limited you.
Man, I was feeling sharp pains the entire time, a lot of achy feelings as well. It was really hard. I couldn't really get much of a lift or boost up whenever I tried to be explosive. Couldn't turn a corner. So I was, man, I was going through it, and just getting frustrated so easily at the fact that I couldn't help my team out was definitely what was bothering me the most.
Well, I would say it helped your team. You ended up a double-figure score. You're out there for 36 minutes. What does it say that you guys were able to overcome all of that, overcome LJ not being out there, all the things you've been through, and emerge as national champs?
It just speaks about our toughness. We've been in many, many battles this year where nothing was going right for us, and we still found a way to win. Today, it was trying to stop them on offensive rebounding. I think they had like 23 offensive rebounds. I don't know if that's a career high that for what we've given up, but man, it was brutal, but we dug down deep. We made plays when we needed to. Elliott made the first 3 of the game for us, and Trey had the biggest 3 of the game, if not the whole tournament for us. So, we got guys that make plays whenever we need them, and those 2 guys stepped up big time today.
You've talked a lot about it. I mean, 6 years ago, you're in your room playing video games, and your mom basically says to you, "Look, you need to figure this out." You ship off to Yuma, Arizona for 3 years, somewhere that I have to figure you never imagined you'd end up. And now you're a national champ. What's kind of the lesson in your story?
Honestly, man, never give up. You can learn so much wherever you are, no matter what. Listen to mom for sure. That's the biggest thing I took from this is listen to mom. She's never gonna be wrong. But man, just be happy where your feet are. Many people have different stories. No matter if your story is like mine or the typical 5-star. It doesn't matter. Just believe in yourself, believe in those around you, and trust God, man. He was with me throughout this whole entire journey. He was with me tonight, and I'm just super, super grateful for that. He blessed me with this opportunity and blessed me to be a champion.
Yaxel, congratulations. National champ for now and forever. It's got to feel good.
Feels great, man. Feels amazing.
All right, Yaxel Lindenberg, congratulations. Let's go back to Chicago.
As you can imagine, the congratulations coming from coast to coast and on social media as well. The Fab Five chiming in. First, Chris Webber showing respect and love. Jalen Rose as well. We've heard that phrase a few times before. Hail to the victors. And from the Fab Five to President number 44, Barack Obama, congratulating Dusty May, Elliott Cadeau, and the rest of Michigan basketball as we head right back to Indianapolis and check in once again with Dave Revson.
Here with national championship coach Dusty May. How's that sound, Coach?
Well, it doesn't seem real. Very grateful to do this for the University of Michigan, for our players and their families, and also the Big Ten Conference.
You say it doesn't seem real. Why?
Our program, everything's about getting to the next thing. You're trying to get to the next scout, the next practice, the next weight session. And now this group, there is no next for this team. Obviously, there will be a nucleus coming back that you transition with, but what a way to go out. There's, one team each year gets to finish on Monday night. You dream it, but you never think it's possible, and these guys made it happen.
How did they make it happen on this night? What stood out about the performance?
They did exactly what they've done for the other 39 games this year. They leaned on each other. They played very smart, sound basketball, and every night the game requires something different, and these guys adjusted to the game and just found different solutions, and they took what the game gave them.
Now, what does it say about this team? This was your lowest field goal percentage of the season, and you end up winning the national championship on your worst shooting day of the year.
Well, when you're roster building, you talk about mitigating risk. What are the ways that on a given night you could lose? And we felt like we could overcome when we put together a roster without a lot of historical shooters, guys that hadn't shot the ball well. And so we knew that was one risk. And so there were other things we felt like we had to be elite at if we were going to overcome a night where we shot the ball like we did tonight.
One of the things you and I talked about yesterday, kind of in anticipation of this, was your journey. And so now here you are, right, an Indiana kid. You win a national championship in your home state. What does all of that mean to you as you consider where you started and where you are tonight?
It means the world. I'm just so grateful for the coaches, the players that have helped me on my journey and poured into me. And I want to especially thank my wife for the sacrifices that she's made for our family. So us ball coaches can chase our dreams and just accept a job and leave the next day to go try to build a recruiting class. And so you just, at this moment, you got to thank all the people that allowed us to be here.
Well, Coach, congratulations on being a national champion. Thanks so much for your time, and go enjoy yourself.
I do like the sound of that. Thanks, Dave.
All right, Dusty, thank you. Yep. Rick?
Rick Pizzo back with Sean Morris. Worst shooting night of the year, crushed on the glass. UConn with more than 20 offensive rebounds. And the Big Ten Player of the Year, your best player, is hobbled by injury, yet Michigan finds a way to get it done. How?
Plus 14 points in the paint, plus 13 from the foul line. I mean, let's not overcomplicate things. Those are the two things that hop out at you, because if you flip the script to what UConn was able to do, they didn't shoot a great percentage from three-point range, but they outscored Michigan by 21 from behind the arc. They made 9 threes in comparison to Michigan's 2. I think the fact that they were able to understand how the game was officiated, they took a look at what UConn traditionally had done throughout the course of the year. Fouling had been an issue for them. Reed had fouled out of 3 ball games, and they were able to get the backcourt of UConn in early foul trouble. And I don't think that they were able to truly overcome that, because that backcourt had to go to the bench for long periods of time. They barely played 20 minutes, a little bit more than half the ball game between that very good backcourt of UConn, and Michigan was just able to take advantage, continue to drive, and force guys offensively for UConn maybe to assume a greater role than they might have been comfortable with.
It may not be the most exciting aspect to talk about, but when Michigan stepped to the free throw line, and Sean, you knew that they would step to the free throw line often because that's the way that UConn plays, they foul. It was imperative for the Wolverines to knock down their free throws. At one point, 20 consecutive free throws made.
And it was really important, obviously, throughout the course of the entire ball game, but maybe more so important in the first half when they were struggling to get anything going. They were able to get into the bonus. They were able to convert and continue to make sure that they were beyond striking distance of UConn for long periods of time. They were able to get there. They were able to convert. They didn't get any 4 fast break points. They weren't able to get up and down and run. This is a team that shoots 37% from behind the arc. They've been torching people from out there. That part of their game wasn't there. They didn't hit a 3 until the second half, yet they were able to say, hey, this is what the defense has given us. It may not be the most glamorous thing, and guys understood that and didn't try to play to something that UConn wasn't willing to give them.
Elliot Cadeau stepped up with a game-high 19. Merez Johnson, 12 points and 10 rebounds, and some huge moments from role players. Trey McKinney has become much more than a role player, but knocked down a really important 3. And Roddy Gale gave so much energy. We saw in the highlight that putback dunk, but he made a bunch of defensive plays, came in and just infused his group with a boost when it needed it most.
And I think that kind of encapsulates in some of the things that we've heard Coach Dusty may talk about, guys being willing to assume a role. Again, Rick, this is a guy in Roddy Gale who started when he was at Ohio State. He started last year. And then they've decided, look, your best chance to help this team win is coming off the bench and providing that lift. He willingly assumed that. And you're not going to see that all the time. And this was somebody, obviously, with being a 5-star recruit, used to scoring a lot. But he found out that there are ways that he can impact, especially on this team, the game in different ways, whether it was rebounding, whether it was willing to go in there and mix it up, get on the floor after loose balls. Outstanding defensively. In the second half, when UConn was starting to make that run, Rick, they were trying to set up some threes from Mullins. He hit one early, and then when they put Gale on him, he got over it, was able to navigate a thicket of screens. Those are the sorts of things that help you win a game where possessions are at a premium.
Pretty good decision now for Roddy Gale to first transfer and then be willing to stay the course at Michigan as he gets to celebrate this evening as a national champion. As we continue our post-game coverage of that national championship, we'll head back to Indianapolis for much more reaction, including an exclusive interview with Roddy Gale. Plus, on the women's side, UCLA likely still celebrating more than 24 hours after their natty. We'll look back on the Bruins' run to a championship when the Big Show returns. Couldn't make it from Ann Arbor to Indianapolis, did make their way inside the Chrysler Center for Michigan's official national championship watch party, and it was all good news for those bathed in maize and blue. Speaking of Indianapolis, let's head back to Lucas Oil Stadium and check in once again with Dave Revson.
Joined now by Roddy Gale. Describe the emotions when that clock hit 0.
Yeah, I feel like every emotion possible. Just seeing the excitement on everybody's faces just feels like it's a relief to be able to kind of feel everything, all the sacrifice we had through the course of the season and be able to just kind of reap the benefits of our hard work.
Describe the locker room scene for me when you guys came in here.
Oh, man. As you can see, a ton of water everywhere.
I mean, you got the goggles on. So
yeah, man. I was a little prepared, but not enough. I just think just pure excitement. I feel like everybody's really excited for each other no matter what, and that was a big key for our success this year.
It's interesting. Obviously, you were here last year, and so you had an influx of new players, 4 guys from the portal. You had a core group that was already here. What was the challenge of integrating those guys and getting everyone to be this consummate team that you guys turned out to be?
It was actually pretty easy this year. I think Coach May really recruited guys with great personalities. It allowed us to build our chemistry off the court, and I think that just kind of gelled and built our relationships on the court. I feel like our ability to be able to kind of feel happy when other people is being successful really drove our run.
Yours has been quite a journey from upstate New York to Ohio State to Michigan. Can you put into words kind of what you're feeling right now as you reflect on everything you've been through?
Nah, man, I can't put together words. I feel like, I was just a kid from Niagara Falls, New York, with just a dream to be able to play at this level, be able to play professionally. And obviously the path that I had just kind of leading to this moment. Just very excited, obviously, for, younger kids to be able to kind of look up to me, especially from my hometown, just to see that it's possible.
Roddy, congratulations on being a national champ.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Rick?
The term is sometimes overused, but this truly was an historic season for Michigan. 37 wins. That is tied for the second most wins ever by a team that ended up winning the national championship, just 1 win behind the 2011-2012 Kentucky Wildcats. Dave Revson and Raphael Davis got to view the most recent win by the Wolverines firsthand and offered their thoughts after the championship win by the Maize and Blue.
Rick, thanks. For the second time in school history, the Michigan Wolverines are national champions. Dave Revson, Raphael Davis. Look, it was not a work of art. I don't think anyone would say that it was, but for Michigan fans, for those players and coaches, there is nothing more beautiful than what happened out on this court here tonight.
I mean, it was just big time. It was everything that we wanted as fans. We wanted a good game. We got a good game. And you look at Michigan, it was the story of their season. They can beat you in any different way. They can beat you in a grind it out. They can beat you getting up and down. And they can beat you when shots don't go in. You think about playing in a national championship. You go 0 from 3 in the first half, and you go 2 for 15 for the game, and you still find a way to win. It just shows the great of a coach that Dusty May is, the talent that those guys have, and the will that they had to get to that free throw line and not just get there, but make them. I mean, this was just a big-time game. To win it with your player of the year, first-team All-American, hobbling on one leg, not able to go at full strength, it was just a full big-time team effort.
No, it's pretty amazing. I mean, 61 of their 69 points came either in the paint or at the free throw line. You just kept thinking eventually they're going to rain in some threes, and in fairness, they did hit 2 of them in the game. But the story of this game, to your point, was the grit, was the determination, and frankly was the defense, because while Michigan shot a season low from the field, UConn did as well. Michigan has been the best defensive team in the country for the entirety of this year, and they showed it here tonight, right?
Oh, it was big time. They were on a string. I mean, they were switching on contact. They were 2-to-man, close, keeping the ball in front of them. When the ball went up, they fought for the defensive rebounds. I mean, this is what you get when you get a Michigan squad. You look at the defense they did on Terrence Reed. It was big time on the glass, but he couldn't finish around the basket. So they not just had a Damar walling it up. They had Marez Johnson, Roddy Gale, guards coming down to clean it up and block shots out of bounds. This is what wins you championships. I know everyone loves analytics. We all love offense, but defense, that's what's going to win at the end of the day. But I got to give a shout out to one of the guys. You look at Elliot Cadeau, and you think about all the noise that was made around LJ Casey when he went down, and deservingly so. But Elliot Cadeau heard that noise as well. Elliot Cadeau heard the country, all of college basketball saying, Michigan's best guard is injured. Well, Elliot Cadeau arrived in this NCAA tournament. He was fabulous throughout, and he had 19 points tonight, just big time, and that was battling with some foul trouble.
The leading scorer for Michigan in this game, and you think about his story, I mean, there's so many great stories on this Michigan team, but Elliot Cadeau, who I think was deemed a disappointment in his time at North Carolina. They pick him up in the portal, and people are thinking, is that really the answer at point guard for Michigan? He showed emphatically that it was the answer on the biggest stage you could possibly have. What did you make of Yaxel Lendeborg? I mean, it is obvious he was hampered. He said as much at halftime when Tracy Wolfson interviewed him, said, you know, I feel terrible, basically. And yet he guts it out in this game, ends up as a double-figure scorer, had some really important moments for them down the stretch.
One word, a warrior, a dude you take to war with you. You heard of foxholes from dudes overseas in wars. You want Yaxel Lendeborg in your foxhole. You want him with you in tough battles to go out there and just lay it all out on the line. He didn't think about his pro career. He could have really damaged himself in this game and really deterred his pro future, but he laid it all out. He wanted to win a national championship. Dusty May trusted in his guy, and the other guys understood that he's out here with us. He's drawing the defense away from him, but he's not the guy that we know him to be, and they picked up the slack. But you got to give the utmost credit to Yaxel, because although he was hurt, with him on the offensive end, hurt or not, the defense had to guard him like he was healthy, and it provided so much space for those bigs to be able to get in the lane and play. So you got to give a huge shout out to Yaxel Lendeborg, one of the better players, one of the better glue guys that we have ever seen in college basketball, and tonight it showed why.
Yeah, it's hard to believe you can be a glue guy and also be the conference player of the year, but you've been making that case all year, and I think we saw it. I mean, you want to talk about the pro future. I mean, if you're an NBA GM and you see somebody do that, you'd say, man, that's a guy I want on my team. I mean, really, really amazing to gut it out in the way that he did. What does this mean for Dusty May and for his program? I mean, pretty amazing to think you're 2 years into this. You took over a team that won 8 games.
That's crazy.
And in 2 years, you turned it into a national champion.
I mean, Dusty May is one of the greatest coaches to ever do it at this point. What he brought together, you talk about Elliot Cadeau being disappointed at North Carolina. He's got these guys all on the same page. They all got better throughout the season. Michigan is now a destination school. Guys are going to be lining up to go play for Dusty May. They already got a McDonald's All-American commit throughout this week. They got another 7-3 guy committed to the program. Michigan is going to have to push away recruits to say, we don't want you, young fella, because everyone's going to be just drooling at the mouth to play for Dusty May. He understands it. He gets how to coach and the X's and O's, and it's great there, but he is in the business of people. You see those guys, they make a mistake, they're not looking over to the bench and worried about coming in out. They continue to play the game that's in front of them, and he's giving those guys the utmost confidence throughout the rest of the season.
Before we send it back to Rick, you have been saying all year that the Big Ten is the best conference in college basketball. I think we saw evidence of it throughout this NCAA tournament. 21 wins for the Big Ten. That is 7 more than any other conference had in this tournament. But ultimately, you are judged fairly or unfairly by whether you win a national championship. What does it mean for this league to finally break through and end that drought that dates back to 2000?
Dave want me to start beating my chest now, because you look at the Big Ten, it's the best conference in all the sports. Football, women's basketball, men's basketball. We got teams in the Frozen Four. You look at the Big Ten right now, the only phrase I have is it's no fun when the rabbit got the gun. We are rocking and rolling right now. The best coaches in the country, the best players in the country. Right now, the Big Ten is back, and we are here to stay. I am so happy to be a part of this thing.
Well, pretty amazing. The Big Ten becomes the first conference ever to, in the same academic year, win the football national championship, the women's basketball national championship, and the men's basketball national championship with 3 different schools. Has never been done with 3 different schools. The Big Ten has now done it, Rick.
Dave dropping nuggets, Raphael making both hunting and hockey references. It all comes down to what Michigan did today to finish off what's been a phenomenal weekend after UCLA won the women's championship. But it's the culmination of what the year was for Michigan that, to me, makes it so impressive, starting with those early season tournaments, the drubbings of teams like Gonzaga, a 19-1 run through the Big Ten, unbeaten on the road, and then to finish it off with a national championship. This will go down as one of, I don't think it matches up with the unbeaten Indiana team, but one of the greatest seasons in college basketball.
I would agree in all regards. And this is a team that, look, they came in shooting 50% from the floor, 37% from three-point range on the year. They didn't come anywhere close to approaching those numbers. Where they did excel over the year was in maybe the most overlooked and sometimes certainly deemed less glamorous area. This is a team that was a very good foul shooting team coming into the ballgame, about 74% as a squad. They shoot 89% from the foul line as a team. This is a team that got to the foul line a fair amount during conference and non-conference play, averaging 17 made free throws per ball game. In the national championship game, 25 made free throws. So they underachieved in some of the more glamorous areas, but when they needed it most, they figured out how the game was going to be called. They figured out where their strength was, and they attacked it. They got out-rebounded. That doesn't happen. They gave up 22 offensive rebounds, but yet still found a way to win by points in the paint and the difference and foul shots made.
And it speaks to what Dusty May has talked about all year. This group is so connected. It doesn't matter who scores the points. It doesn't matter what pace or tempo they have to play at. He believes this team as a unit is better as a group than anybody else out there. And Monday night proved that to be the case. Michigan is a national champion. Our post-game reaction coverage continues from Indianapolis. We'll hear from that very tall man, Adai Mara. And we check in with our women's crew who spent the weekend in Phoenix with the champion Bruins. All that and more still to come here on this championship edition of The Big Show. The Big Ten's championship season continues as Michigan adds its name to the list of newly crowned national champs, joining UCLA this past weekend, Indiana earlier in the year in men's football. And like those teams, it was a truly team effort throughout the NCAA tournament for Michigan. In the Wolverines' 6 wins, 4 different leading scorers. Merez Johnson in game 1. Then Yaxel Lendeborg led the Wolverines in scoring in 3 consecutive games before Adai Mara had his star turn with a career night against Arizona in the national semis. And Elliot Cadeau, the game high total with 19 points to lead the Wolverines to the national title in the final over UConn. Take you back to Indianapolis once again as we check in with Dave Revson.
Here with Adai Mara, who is considerably taller than I am. Adai, national champion, congratulations. Take us through that game. It was not a typical Michigan game, right? You guys were forced to play a style a little bit differently than you'd like to. How were you able to come out ahead?
Yeah, as you said, like it was different. We like to play fast. They like to play slow. So it was like a slow game. We knew it was going to be a game with not like a lot of points. So every basket meant a lot. But I think just relying on what we've been doing the whole season, you know, like in defense, we knew that if we were playing good defense, we were going to be able to do this. So I think just by doing that and keeping everyone like together through whole the game, it was the key to win all.
Yeah, one of the things that really stood out to me was the defensive performance, and you guys have been the #1 defense in terms of efficiency all year. After overwhelming opponents with your offense these first 5 games of the tournament, to be able to rely on your defense to come through, what does that say about this team?
Well, we took that in the first part of the season as a goal to be the first, like the best defensive team in the country. So as soon as we made it, we were like, we got to keep doing this. We got to rely on defense because as soon as we were making stops and running in the fast break, hitting threes in transition, you know, we were having so much fun because it's like, it's good to play with like that in a high pace. Everyone gets more shots, you know, everyone can get more points. So as soon as we were doing that and we were playing like a good defense, we were able to like enjoy the game and having fun. But I think the defense was one of the keys, you know. So people is talking about like or shooting or offense, you know, but I think defense was the biggest thing.
So the clock has struck midnight. It's your 21st birthday.
Yeah, it is. Now I gotta talk with the team to see what we do to celebrate it, you know. But
I have some ideas as to what you might be. If you want to talk about some thoughts, I have some thoughts. I'll share it with you when we stop rolling the camera.
Yeah, off camera, yeah.
Adai, congratulations and happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
Adai Mara. Let's go back to Chicago.
It's either fitting or coincidental, depending on how you look at it. As Mara celebrates his 21st birthday, the Big Ten celebrates 21 overall wins in the NCAA tournament, by far the most of any conference. The SEC second with 14 of those 21. Of course, Michigan cashing in with 6 and Illinois chipping in with 4 as both of those teams make it to the Final Four. To the latest women's national champions. From Westwood as Corey Close, Lauren Betts, and the rest of the Bruins got things done in dominant fashion on Sunday against South Carolina. What a year it was. First ever NCAA national title for the Bruins. They did win a national championship in the late 1970s in a non-NCAA organized event. 37 wins for the Bruins this year, most not only in program history, but also the most in Big Ten history, as UCLA finishes the season by winning 31 straight, including a win over Texas to avenge the only loss during the regular season. Our crew who spent the weekend with the Bruins in Phoenix offering their final thoughts as we say hello to Elise Woodward, Christy Winter-Scott, and Autumn Johnson.
All right, thanks, Rick. UCLA wins the national championship. They finished 37-1 on a 31-game win streak, and they beat fellow #1 seed South Carolina by 28 points. That is the third largest margin of victory in any NCAA title game. Just total domination for UCLA and making a statement from the Big Ten. It's just their second championship since 1999 in this conference. Impressive all the way around for the Bruins.
Yeah, the Bruins had to face different conferences to get to this point. In the Big 12, you had the Big 10 facing Minnesota, and then back-to-back SEC teams in dominating fashion, doing it with not only their offense, but their defense. That is purely a statement to say, hey, we are here. The Big 10 is a gauntlet. Every single night you're going up against different foes, different styles, different offenses, defenses. It's just a testament to what they've been able to do all season long as the Big 10 champs and winning all of their games in double figures by double digits, all but two, but in dominating fashion in that championship game, 51 points. It's been just truly domination from start to finish from UCLA, and to do it against other conferences, purely a statement from this program.
Right, and they did it in a masterful way, especially on the defensive end. Now, South Carolina came into the championship game leading the country in paint points. So they dismantled that, right? It was a 40-28 advantage for UCLA. They took the basketball into the trenches and they won. They stayed purposeful. They were on their game on the defensive side. But when you're looking at what they were able to do on the offensive end, 23 assists on 30 made shots. So they were well connected on the offensive end as well. But they were really fun to watch. You could just see it in their eyes that they were playing for one another. And when you have that spirit and that competitive heart for one another, especially the 6 seniors, beautiful things can happen when you have that level of collective effort.
Yeah, UCLA just played a perfect game. They dominated on both sides of the ball. And as we look forward to next year in the Big Ten, the national championship, the Final Four will be in Columbus, Ohio. And I think the Buckeyes might have something to say about that. The Kennedy Cambridge and her sister Jelani, of course, would love to make a run, but there's so many good teams, so much talent coming back a year after 12 teams made the NCAA tournament, 3 into the Sweet 16, 2 in the Elite 8, and then, of course, UCLA is your national champion. What's your initial thoughts about looking forward to next year already?
All the teams, I'm excited to see how everything pans out next season. A lot of young stars are coming back, but I think of Michigan. I'm excited for them to shake things up, but just feeling and tasting the Elite 8, knowing what it takes to get to that moment, more history for this program under KBA. I'm excited to see how these young stars are going to come back together and maybe even join some forces with others, but just getting scarier and scarier from this point on is going to be very fun to see how the Big Ten continues to get dangerous.
The best thing about sophomores at Michigan, they're juniors. That's scary for sure, but also the return of Juju Watkins to USC, that is going to be fun as well to see how she operates with Jazzy Davidson on the floor.
Ooh, it's going to be good. Of course, we're not even talking about Iowa and Michigan State and Washington, and the list goes on and on and on. And it's going to be another great year. But congratulations to UCLA, the 2026 national champions. That does it from here in Phoenix. We'll send it back to the studio in Chicago.
There will be a lot of championship ring fitting around the Big Ten over the next couple of days. We continue our post-game reaction after Michigan's national title win. We'll hear more from Dusty May and Yaxel Lendeborg, as well as checking in with that man, Elliot Cadeau, after the break. Dusty May does is win. The national championship, for example, during his second season in Ann Arbor, leading Michigan to 37 wins. Of course, also took Florida Atlantic to the Final Four. Not a bad winning percentage in the NCAA tournament at 8-1 as he becomes the first coach, but he will not be the last to win an NCAA title with 5 transfer starters. Coach May beginning our press conference coverage post Michigan's national championship win.
Yeah, what a way to wrap up the 25-26 college basketball season with this group. I want to begin by thanking last year's team. at Michigan, we came up a little bit short, but those guys laid the foundation, established an identity for us, and also helped attract these guys to come in and chase this dream together. And secondly, I want to thank our FAU guys, the team and staff that really, this is one time I'm making it about me, that really helped us grow together. And that was the first time I'd been with a group that was truly sacrificial, where we were about each other, and because of that we all improved so much. And this team's done the same thing. It's when you bring a group this talented together and they decide from the beginning that they're going to do it this way, and they never waver and they never change.
All year we've been just finding ways to win, and we made 2 threes the whole game. We wasn't making shots. We weren't we had a couple assists, not as many as we usually do, but we constantly just been finding ways to win all year, no matter how everybody's playing.
To piggyback off of that, early on in the season, we went through our struggles offensively, trying to find our rhythm. What stuck out and what really brought us together was how, unselfish we were eventually in those moments, and our defensive toughness, and whenever our offense isn't rolling, we find a way to make plays with our defense and make it lead to quick offense.
Everybody on this team is extremely talented, and for us to be able to, sacrifice something for ourselves, I mean, a lot of us, could be somewhere else, doing more than what we've done this season, but I think it just shows that this team is super selfless, and I've never been around such a talented group of guys that, are willing to take a lesser role for somebody next to them. So I'm just really grateful to be around this team, and, I'm going to cherish this moment for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I just saw so much talent around me since day one, and just like a unique set of talent, like 3 bigs at the same time, switching 1 through 4. I just seen like a unique type of basketball that we was playing, and I knew like it would be a mismatch nightmare for every single team that we played, and it was this year.
Shout out to Will, Roddy, Namari, LJ, especially those guys. Once we all got together, they were super genuine with us the whole way. They tucked us in under their wing, and they showed us the Michigan way. They could have easily got butt hurt or something because the new guys were coming in, stealing their minutes, stealing their points, but they didn't care. All they cared about was winning, and look where it led us.
Elliot Cadeau, the most outstanding player. Clearly, he's got quick hands. We see it on the court, and before you know it, after the national championship win, he's on social media thanking Coach Dusty May for believing in him, helping transform that career that was considered a disappointment at North Carolina. Devin Gardner knows a thing or two about the game, former Michigan quarterback turned football analyst, giving his best basketball analysis, saying Michigan hadn't been in many dogfights, but still found a way. And of course, our good friend, Jake Butt, former Wolverine and NFL tight end and current Big Ten Network football analyst, saying that Coach May is the best coach in all of basketball, and right now, not much argument against that statement. We'll take another trip to Indianapolis after the break. Andy Katz joining our Final Four crew as we get more on the newly crowned national champion Michigan Wolverines. And blue, the 2 colors of champions, as Michigan knocks off UConn on Monday night to join the ever-growing list of Big Ten national champions in this academic athletic calendar year. Elliot Cadeau named the most outstanding player. You see all of the Big Ten players who have been named MOP of the Final Four over the course of the last 60 years. No coincidence that most of these players left that Final Four with a national championship trophy to go along with their MOP honors. Let's take you to Indianapolis. Andy Katz joining our crew. Dave Revson anchoring, and Rafael Davis sporting a very new look.
Rick, thanks. For the first time in 37 years, the Michigan Wolverines are national champs. It's the largest gap ever between national championships in the history of college basketball. Dave Revson, Andy Katz, and the begoggled Rafael Davis got a souvenir out of that Michigan locker room. Fellas, amazing night for Michigan, amazing night for the Big Ten as well. This is the first time we've heard from you in this show. Your biggest takeaways from what we saw here tonight?
Well, in talking to the players after the game on the court behind me, they were discussing in the chaotic celebration about how essentially, and I'm paraphrasing here, they earned this one because, they dominated teams. they had to win this one in basically a fight. I mean, not literally, figuratively. And they did it by less possessions, dealing with a UConn team that was not going to go away. They had to make key plays late in the game, and they got contributions from a variety of players. I mean, Yaxel Lendeborg, we saw, he was not the same player. He even said it at halftime that he didn't feel great.
He said it to us in the locker room afterward,
so,
too.
Other players had to continue to step up. They did it, and I would just say overall, to win a championship, and doing this a long time, it's never going to be the same way twice. I mean, so to expect them to do what they did in the semi, in the final, it's pretty rare. And that's what was so impressive. Michigan won this by winning this weekend in different ways.
Yeah, and that's what they've been all season. They've showed us all year long they can beat you at your game, they can beat you at their game, they can beat you at any game. When they step on the floor, you might as well just roll the ball out because those guys can adjust. You talked about different guys stepping up. Roddy Gale was big on the defensive end. That game-saving rebound at the very end and just launching the ball down the floor, I mean, just big time. But when I look at this squad, when I was in that locker room and I got to talk to those guys, got to talk to Adai, got to talk to Roddy, got to talk to Elliott, all of those guys bet on themselves. And the guy that bet on himself the most, maybe Marez Johnson. Even talked to Marez Johnson's father. They understand the moment that they're in. They bet on themselves, and they won big time. It may not work like that, everybody in the transfer portal, but you look at what Dusty May brought into this team, 4 guys that were committed to winning. It would have done anything for Coach, would have ran through a wall.
And how about this moment in the locker room? Sorry, Andy, but share what Dusty May said to you in the locker room, because I think this is worth hearing.
Yeah, Dusty May looks at me before he gives his interviews, and he says, "You believed before I believed," because I was beating the drum early in July saying that Michigan was going to win a national championship. So I maybe put a little bit of pressure on Coach, but every great coach needs a guy like me in the background to be a cheerleader for him so he doesn't have to do it.
And one thing I just want to add, so when I interviewed Adai Mari, he's got the Spanish flag around him, and, he had said that obviously he didn't grow up around March Madness, so he didn't know anything about it.
Right.
Goes to UCLA, they're watching this. That got him to appreciate this even more, that when he got to Michigan, what this feels like to go through this journey and win a championship for someone who didn't grow up dreaming of this day.
So many great stories, so many great paths on this team. Dusty May is certainly among them. I mean, to be an Indiana kid, a Bob Knight manager, to really spend some time kind of in the lower levels of this sport. I mean, we're talking about this is a guy 11 years removed from being an assistant coach at Louisiana Tech. What a moment for him.
Yeah, and I would just also add, earlier in the day, I spoke with Quinn Buckner, 50th anniversary of the 76 Hoosiers, and he said to me how proud he was that an Indiana manager was potentially going to win a national championship, and that's exactly what happened.
And just think about winning a national championship alongside your son. I mean, it just makes it so much more special to come back home, have your son on the team with you, your family in the stands, and you win a national championship. That's special, man.
So many fabulous storylines. Michigan, 2 national championships now for the Wolverines as they join Indiana and Michigan State, the only 2 schools to win multiple national titles as Big Ten members. Rick?
Gents, thanks. We'll take one final break. When we come back, we reflect on a year of championships inside the Big Ten, the most recent collected by the Maize and Blue on Monday night in Naptown. The Big Ten season of success started way back in the fall. Indiana running the table, ultimately claiming the school's first CFP national championship in January. Earlier this weekend, UCLA won the school's first ever NCAA title in women's basketball. And on Monday night, Michigan won its second ever men's basketball national title. You see the list of some of the other schools to also win national titles during this academic athletic calendar year. And of course, both Michigan and Wisconsin still have a chance to add to this list during the Frozen Four this coming week in Vegas. Time for one final trip out to Indianapolis as we join our Final Four crew once again.
Rick, thanks. Guys, it finally happened. The Big Ten has won a national championship. We no longer have to hear about 2000 Michigan State being the last time. I rarely, if ever, make it about me. But I have to say, I've done 11 losing locker rooms at the Final Four. It was really fun to finally do a winning one.
Well, and what's great is this was deserving. This was not a shocker, not a surprise. Michigan, throughout the course of the season, was arguably, if not the best, one of the 2 best teams throughout the course of the season. So they finished the job because we saw in November they had national championship, pedigree, and they completed and got the title.
And they beat that other team that was the best team in the country about 30 the other night. So you look at Michigan, the dominance they had all season long. This is the best Big Ten team that we've ever seen. You look at how the variation they can beat you on the defensive end, the offense that get you in transition. But tonight, to only make 2 threes and to get out rebounded and to be punished on the offensive glass to find a way to win, I mean, it's just big time. It's what we've been saying all season. Michigan, 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 defense, defense, defense. The Big Ten is back, baby.
And I will say this. I think the rest of the league was very glad that they could finally snuff out UConn. Because think about it, UConn beat Purdue a couple of years ago. And this tournament, UConn beat Michigan State, UCLA, Illinois. I think the Big Ten needed UConn to be put down.
Illinois and Northwestern 2 years ago.
Yes.
I mean, they have run roughshod through the Big Ten. But again, I just think the significance of this moment for the league, and then you combine it with 3 straight football national championships. You combine it with what UCLA did on Sunday in Phoenix, what might happen in the Frozen Four. But again, we mentioned it earlier. I mean, to hold all 3, football, men's basketball, women's basketball, and have it be 3 different schools has never been done. So what the Big Ten did this year, unprecedented.
And I will say, things look good because in this portal era, Big Ten has the money. I mean, Big Ten schools have the money to get the kind of players you need to compete at this level. And the stars aligned here in Indianapolis. Next year, in Detroit, I mean, there's going to be a lot of focus. Get a Big Ten, multiple Big Ten teams to Detroit.
Ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun. And right now, the Big Ten, we're the rabbit with the gun. And you talk about next year in Detroit, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but Michigan State may come into next season as the preseason favorite to win it all. You bring Jeremy Fears back and all those guys. You look at the Big Ten right now, football, basketball, women's basketball, we are here to stay. We got the best coaches in the country. You got some of the better young players in the country. We have the best fan bases in all of sports. This makes us the more powerful conference in all of college sports. I am so happy to be a part of this.
And I will say this last thing about Michigan State. By the way, the last time it was at Ford Field, Michigan State was in it, lost Carolina. And Tom Izzo right now watching Michigan cut down those nets. He's not retiring until he's got another shot.
So reading between the lines, you guys have been very subtle on this, but you don't think it will be until 2052 until the Big Ten wins another one?
No.
You're confident it's going to happen?
I'm very confident.
Before then, that's good. That's a relief because that would be a lot more losing locker rooms. Really a joyous scene in that Michigan locker room, and I know a lot of excited people in Rosemont as well, and a lot of excited people in our network headquarters in Chicago, Rick.
No question about that, including yours truly and Sean Morris, who got to watch this one. Final thoughts on what Michigan did on Monday night.
Maybe not unprecedented, but impressive nonetheless. To go 19-1 in a top-heavy league that was the best league in the country throughout the year, only losing that game at home, dominating on the road and finding different ways to win, they earned everything they got.
Say it loud and proud. Hail to the victors. Hail to the national champion Michigan Wolverines.